Yes, I can. Yeah. What happened? What happened? What happened? I can't hear anything. It sucks because that was pretty good. Sorry, but
Right. Okay. Right, guys. Right. Okay, that's great. Yeah, yeah. I did like quite a decent introduction then, but I did insult everybody by calling everybody sad for listening to this shit show. Which I was kind of making a comparison that Lorne's book is like when people go on American Idol, and you're just thinking, what on earth made them think that they could sing? Why did they think that they could? You know, because the funny ones are like got millions and millions of views, and we have like the X Factor over here, and some of the most memorable moments on TV are when these people go on there and sing, and you're just like, what? You know, you're kind of wondering if they've got mental health issues and whatnot. But after reading chapter one, it's just perplexing, really. It's I find it very interesting how Lorne's whole character is summed up within the contents of that book. It's all there, isn't it? Even the perversion, there was hints of it in chapter one. What do you guys reckon?
yeah. Can I just go back to your earlier point about the what was that American Idol thing?
Yeah,
How they pass on these people who are clearly not talented and are just basically there to for people to laugh at, right?
yeah. It's
That's
like the
pretty much
modern
what we
freak
do.
show, isn't it?
Yeah, I
You just
mean
read
that's
my mind, Shin. I was
yeah,
just about to say that.
that's like a mainstream what we do, you know.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of point I was making, really. And also,
Yeah,
I did feel not bad, but I had to evaluate myself when I was doing that last week, thinking a guy's had a go at writing a book, and we're just destroying him. If it was like what Tiffany said about the catfishing, really, with its lawn, it's kind of like okay. I'm still not all the way there, but I'm thinking he kind of within the book, within the premise behind it, and his motivations for doing it, and the dedication and all that nonsense, and the fact that we believe he took 5 grand off his mother to pay for the publishing. He kind of it
yeah. Well,
deserves to get ridiculed in a way.
yeah. I think that we have to admit to ourselves that that's what it is. You know, I mean, in all, not just pornography, but everywhere, we love to watch freaks, and we love to seriously, we love to highlight them and make them dance in front of us or whatever they're doing, singing. So, that's where we have to start. You know, there is that element to all of humanity, not just us. So,
I
Lauren
just
is a
want to clarify
unique.
something.
Go ahead,
If I
Tiff.
can clarify something real quick, this didn't cost him 5 grand to publish.
Okay.
It cost about 600 to 800. That figure's a little iffy, but I think it's around the $600 mark. He took the 5,000 from his mother, which was the estate from her brother passing away, and he took that because when he got out of prison, obviously he didn't have anything. He didn't have a job. He kind of needed some help getting on his feet, and that's what the money was for. So clearly, I'm sure if he still had that money available, which having money in Lauren's pocket it's like burning a hole there. He can't hold on to anything. If you've listened to any of the Jamie stuff, he spends money like crazy. As soon as he has it, it's gone. So
so that
with that 5 grand, I'm sure, if there was any part of that, certainly he could have used it for the publishing. It would make sense that he wouldn't just have $600 available to do that. He could have extended his loan as well. Perhaps that was given to him from his aunt or someone else in the family, but it did not cost 5 grand. So I just wanted to point that out.
oh man. So basically, $4,400 or so he pissed away
Oh, for sure.
under the
For
pretense of
sure he
getting
did.
that money to publish his book. So or he probably, like you said, needed seed money, get back on his feet.
Well,
Or
he
whatever.
did. Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't given to him for this purpose.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure that
I misunderstood that.
yeah, he could have used it, at least part of it for that, if he still had it on him. It's either that or maybe he received another sort of a loan for this type of a thing.
Yeah.
The man only had $5,000 to his name when he got out of prison, and he used precious hundreds of that very limited, very small amount of money, if that's all he has in the world, to publish a book, a terrible book. I think it shows his delusion. I think he thought he was going to really make some money off this piece of shit.
Yeah.
Well, if he definitely did, he wouldn't have wasted any. He wouldn't have wasted any time on it if he didn't think it was going to be of some benefit.
I suspect that he also took advantage of, because we know he didn't finish the book when he was in prison, and he finished it at the, urging of his mother, according to one story I heard him say. He probably took advantage of that and said, listen, I can't work right now because I need to finish this book. And that's probably what he used that rest of that money for living expenses, that kind of thing. Well, you get it back when I get my first advance from the publisher. Don't worry about it, Mom. But so he was even, he had a justification to stay unemployed and take their money by sinking it into this wonderful book.
Yeah, and just to also clarify what No Coupons for Karen said, there was no meeting with a publishing company for this, so it's not actually published by a publishing house. This is something that anyone can do. You can go to, I think it's Books A Million that did it. You can submit it, and they'll put it into their kiosks, which is sort of like the Redbox videos. Yeah, so you can go and you can get it there. So it wasn't sitting in a Barnes & Noble or anything like that. That would never happen. But they would print it. Yeah, they would print it if you ordered it right there, and you'd be able to get a copy. But yeah, there was no publishing for this. So he had to pay for everything. He did not get paid to do this.
Self-published, basically.
Yes.
Anybody could be self-published.
It's a huge amount of arrogance, I'd say, in him doing this. It's like you try and look for a positive in it, and I was just trying to do that in my mind then, right, when you were talking. I was thinking, well, at least he kind of had the ambition to do it, but I'm thinking it's kind of not really it's not really notable. It's like the people that go on the talent shows that don't do any training, that think that they can just turn up with nothing and somehow are entitled to that famous lifestyle. That's what's really pisses Simon Cowell off with a lot of them. And it's the same with Lorne. It's like he wanted maximum benefit from minimal effort, and it's like, well, it's ridiculously arrogant to think that you can just sit down, not even do draft copies or any kind of planning or a story outline, and just think that you can just get something.
Well, it's the same thing he did with his singing career.
Yeah.
With the karaoke.
At least he learned how to play guitar, but saying that, though, it did take him to get sent down
No,
for
I'm talking
5
about
years.
his plan when he was in Nashville.
Oh, of course, yes.
And that was to be discovered.
He had that plan even later. When talking to one of his girlfriends, there's a great call with Tiffany where she tells him, you're not going to be a country music singer. Can you find a more realistic goal? That's ridiculous. And she pointed out that he smokes 3 packs a day, but he's got his heart set on becoming a famous singer. So like you said, he wants all the reward for absolutely minimal effort.
And the thing you're saying, Andrew, about Simon Cowell and whoever those other people are, who get on people who don't work on their craft, their art at all, and they just think they can get up there. Can you imagine if Lorne got on the show and then he described how he practiced in karaoke bars every night? What Simon would have said.
But that's what some people do on that show.
Could you imagine the mini syllables during that explanation?
Yeah.
They would just be staring at him.
Yeah.
He'd say some nonsensical shit about
yes.
a girl named Amanda James, and
Yeah, because some of them go on with a sob story, don't they? Like, oh, my cat died 5 years ago, and when the cat died, it was sick on a music sheet, and I sung that song better than I've ever, all that bollocks. That's probably something he'd come out with.
They let him go on, though, I think.
Yeah, well, it'd have like millions of views on YouTube, so he would have made it famous, but for the wrong reasons, and then probably tried to make a career out of that, just like he did with the pornography thing. But of course, I'd sooner be humiliated on the X Factor or American Idol than fucking busted on To Catch a Predator.
Right, but and not only that, he would have made some money, and he would have been famous for being bad, and I guess there were a couple of stars like that kind of stretched out their 15 minutes of fame and made some money off of. He could have done that. But what song do you think you would have wanted him to sing, Tiffany and Amanda?
I would want him to sing that Leanne Rimes song, "I Need You," that he sang to Jamie one time, and he screamed when he got to that high note. It was really great.
Yeah, it was really good. I was going to say that he should sing "I Loved Her" first, because it would be hilarious for us. But
that was his best rendition. He wouldn't be funny enough, I don't think. I don't know.
I don't think it was that good. I mean, I'd laugh at him. But the Leanne Rimes song is really
but We Can Dream, right? We Could Dream.
Or there's Creep by Radiohead. He came
Oh,
up with his own version.
he did. He came up with his own melody. It wasn't. There was nothing recognizable about it at all, which is really.
He didn't see the irony in him singing "Creep."
He
How
did.
about what's the other one? Faithfully by Journey. You could do that one. Or La Bamba. Oh, that'd be good.
Oh, you know what? The Journey stuff would actually be funny, because then he could tell the story about how he was in that band in prison, and they told him that he sounds exactly like Steve Perry, and then have Simon Cowell go a lot, validate that for sure.
I wish
Lauren actually has some original music too that he wrote himself.
He does.
Love songs he wrote.
Those are amazing as well.
We'll have to have a look at the lyrics. Might be interesting.
The lyrics were incredible. I actually heard that just recently, and they're all really fucked up weird.
Well, it's interesting. Weird. There's another sort of wealth of analysis material that we've not even mentioned is the lyrics to his songs. Like, we'll discuss it another time, because we need to get to it, because even though this is entitled Chapter 2, I had a brief look, and Chapter 2 is ridiculously short. How he could have made that into a chapter. He can't even get the chapters right, like splitting the book up into chapters. But Chapter 3 is ridiculously long, well, not ridiculously long, but for him it is. So we'll see where we get to anyway.
Somebody asked, real quick, Andrew. Somebody asked in the chat how many pages this book is. Anybody know?
It was 175.
I answered.
175 pages. Okay. Okay.
They want to hear Lauren sing Oasis, Andrew.
Jesus, nah. I mean,
gosh.
Faster than a cannonball.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever be able to listen to Oasis again.
Jen, next stream, you have to sing it, please. That was great. What you just did, that little bit there. I want to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, I love Oasis. They're so dysfunctional. I love them.
In fact, I remember, Shim, when you picked me up from the airport, you actually had The Cure on.
Yeah.
Like like a really well-renowned British band. I was like, you just...
Robert Smith, man, he's great. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like heaven. It was. When we met, our eyes locked.
Do you know what was funny? I was waiting in the car in the outside the terminal, and the cars were parked outside, and as soon as I walked out there was a truck. What wasn't white, unfortunately. It had Armstrong Repair written on it.
It should have rented one.
In fact, you know what? I've actually got a photo of that. I'll stick it on one of the streams. So can you guys see Chapter 2?
Yeah. The aspect ratio's off of it. Like,
yeah, I'm just gonna change it a little bit so people at home can see. Yeah, that'll be fine. That right? Okay, so the beginning of chapter 2. So I bet you're all very anxious to find out what's going to happen to our main protagonist, Aram. Shall we? Amanda James, do you want to give a brief summary of where we're up to in the story?
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to remember. So we learned that Aaron was in high school and he was very eager to serve his country through a very deep and not at all shallow or superficial sense of patriotism. And he met with a recruiter twice, I guess, and found out all the information he needed and enlisted and was soon to be off to basic training.
Okay.
Right? I don't remember.
Right, that doesn't sound very enticing.
You forgot
I don't think we should go any
clocks.
further.
That's not really part of the story, Jin, though, is it?
Well, the clocks were a big part of the story. It represents something. It's got to be something deep in that first chapter. I have no idea. But
No,
Amanda
there's
got
nothing
it
deep in
all.
there at all.
That's about as mundane as it was. But this kid is also not very.
Well, we know about as much as we know about as much about Aaron as we do about Kayla. I think that's the basic gist of it. You know, there's nothing there, is there, other than he's a bit of a mummy's
there's something
boy.
off about him.
Of course he is. He's been created by Lon. Of course there's something off about him.
Yeah.
All we've really heard about is what an admirable guy Aaron is, but without any evidence. Well, without
it just
anything
says it
to back it up. Right. The writer wants us to believe that he's an admirable character. He wants to fight for his country. His mother loves him very much, and he's got, his friends want to go off and do high school things. They go out to lunch, but he's responsible. He's got a, he's doing his plans for the future. All these things should paint the picture of an admirable character, but they don't.
Well, let's give him chance for a decent story arc to develop this character. I mean, here's a perfect opportunity. You've got a young man, a little bit naive, for some bizarre reason he feels envious of people at this stage in his life, which he shouldn't be. This career in the military could change him into just a virtuous character.
The discipline, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
what we touched upon it last week. Is the basic premise of course, is good. Young guy wants to join the military. I'm keeping an open mind where this book's concerned. I have no idea where it's going. Well, I'm not keeping an open mind actually. I'm just lying. But I will. Anyway, I'll get cracking, shall we? So, beginning chapter 2. Aaron suddenly found himself at Fort. What? What do you mean he suddenly found himself there?
He just woke up. From a coma.
Like all of a sudden? So rather than explain how he got to Fort Jackson, Lorne's quick and easy explanation is he just suddenly found himself there. Did he unintentionally travel to Fort Jackson?
Yeah,
we're never going to get through this. You got to read the whole paragraph. We got to come back.
The point is we're going to critique
more,
it.
I'm thinking, I know you're going to get hung up again.
That is a good point, though. It's such a lazy way of writing it. It's such a lazy thing to do. He suddenly found himself there. He just woke up on the ground.
Yeah.
It's like Carolina? What he's trying to do in the story. Let's put this into perspective, right? In movies or even in books, you could say 10 years later, people write good stories like that if they want it to span a certain amount of time. Like if you have movies where somebody, it happens very, very often. I'm sure you could. I can't think of. I'll just think of, because I'm a nerd, Rogue One. We saw the character of Star Wars Rogue One at the beginning. She was a little girl, and then 20 years later, she's a rebel fighting. So it happens a lot in movies. But what he's done here is he's not just going to suddenly wake up and from 20, like in 5 years, is he? Aaron suddenly found himself at Fort Jackson. He's like, woke up, oh, fucking hell, I'm at Fort Jackson. Where did the last 2 years go?
Is that what? Okay, that's not 2 years. Do we know it's 2 years?
Well, I presume it's a reasonable amount of time. Because he's not even.
You would think, there'd be a story about him getting ready, saying goodbye to his friend Derek, something. And
boarding the plane.
Don't laugh.
Derek's
my favorite character.
Well, you're right.
But the thing about this is the way he writes this, every time an event happens, it's happening to Aaron. Aaron doesn't control anything. Everything is outside his control.
Sounds familiar.
Sound familiar? Yeah.
Yeah, well pointed out, that dude. Have you noticed?
I didn't travel down there unintentionally. I traveled to Fort Jackson unintentionally. But suddenly found myself here.
I've only read the first sentence. I'm like enraged.
That's what I'm saying. We're never going to get through this. We can't make this the chat log, man.
Yeah, well, no, you're right. He looked around at the many other young men and women that, like himself, wanted to fight for their country. From the moment he got off the plane, he was to follow every order given to him. He was surprised to see that they had not waited until the following day to start demanding God. What? He was surprised they had not. What the fuck is he talking about?
Your first day there, you get a break like a kindergartner on the first day of
I can't even.
You kind of just sit around coloring.
He quickly realised that his life was no longer his own, and he had to. He had rules that he had to follow that were made by. What the fuck? Well, what did he think was going to happen? I think I get what Lorne is trying to convey. He just doesn't know how to articulate. He's basically saying that all of a sudden this guy who was in control of his own destiny realised that it was under the influence of other people. So, you know, but like the point is,
he was surprised. He actually says he was surprised. You're right, Andrew. What did you expect?
Surprised to see that they had not waited until the following day to start demanding orders. I don't understand what he means.
In 1800, we start making demanding orders. Not
he means that when he got there, he probably figured you'd have a day to relax, kind of walk around, get settled in,
show your mommy around.
The next morning, then they're going to start the business.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this gets better. It's all worth it. He spoke softly to himself.
This is what's hilarious. You haven't read ahead, and your reaction to the whole thing is so hilarious.
This is my dream, and it's what I've wanted for a long time. This guy needs to be locked up. Like, he spoke soft, right? So he's talking to himself, but in a soft way, right?
I'm hearing an echo.
Oh, right.
It's a total nothing sentence too. It's like, what the fuck? So if somebody overheard him saying that, this isn't what he's thinking. He's talking it, right?
Yeah, he's quoting his own self-talk.
He's just this is his shorthand way of producing a story without showing a story or narrating actions or events or anything like that. He just makes a statement, you know. He found himself there. People are giving orders when he didn't expect to. He just dwells on the most meaningless stuff. Yeah, it really does.
Just get this bit right. Even if I don't like being told what to do, if you don't like being told what to do, a career in the military probably isn't a good idea for you. I would suggest.
He doesn't understand that. He doesn't.
This Aaron geezer is a doofus. He really is. Right, one of you guys read this because I'm struggling to get my head around what's fucking going on here.
Okay. After a couple of weeks of day in and day out routine, things became much easier for him. Even taking orders and following them had become a thoughtless action. It seemed like time had flown by when finally his 9 weeks of basic training had ended, and he was already in his 5th week of technical training school. I can't believe this time has gone by so quickly, Aaron said to his mother, who was on the other end of the phone. One second, I need to turn here.
He narrates time passing.
Another 6 weeks of tech school, then I graduate and I can come home for 2 weeks. I'll be happy to see you again. I've missed you. He heard his mother begin to cry as she said the last 3 words. Mom, I know this is hard. But I have to tell you that after I come home for 2 weeks, I leave to go to Fort Dix, New Jersey for 2.5 months of training to go to Iraq. He waited a few long seconds for his mother to absorb the news. Are you all right, Mom? He asked. I'm fine, son. I had a feeling that you were going to go over there from the beginning, so I've been preparing myself for it. This is what I wanted to do, Mom, and it makes me happy, he said to reassure his mother. I know. I want you to know that I'm very proud of you. The words she said to him sank deep inside and brought a smile to his face. I have to go now, Mom. I'll see you in 6 weeks.
I thought he was going to say, I have to go now, Mom. I need to pee. I'll see you in 6 weeks.
I love you too, son. Goodbye. Aaron hung the phone up and stood motionless as he thought about the words his mother had said to him as they penetrated deep. I'm
penetrated deep.
Her voice saying those words echoed in his head. He smiled at the phone, then turned and walked away. Fort Dix, New Jersey was an exciting place for Aaron as he learned many ins and outs of what would take place in Iraq. It could only partially prepare him for the real thing, and he realized this from the beginning. He had a good visit when he went home for 2 weeks, but knew he had made the right decision by joining the Army when he had seen some of his friends still hanging around home and working at dead-end jobs, going nowhere with their lives. It made him feel good, knowing that what he was doing was important to many lives. Now he had to finish his training at Fort Dix so he can move on to Kuwait and then Iraq, where he will be fighting for what he believes in.
What does he believe in? And we're done.
Who knows?
That's the whole chapter?
That's the whole chapter.
He believes in the Iraqi citizens' rights.
Fighting for their freedom and also the freedom of the United States citizens. Yeah, that's the whole chapter.
That's the whole chapter?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what's interesting here is that he went to prison in Fort Dix.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's interesting that he picked there out of all of the bases that he could have gone to.
Yeah, we're going to say this throughout the entire book. I mean, he had all these experiences he could have told us about. Instead, he tells us, a brief summary of it without telling anything specific, and then having a conversation with his mother. That's the book.
I mean, I feel like he could have really skipped all of this because he gave no detail at all about what it was like in basic training, what it was like in tech school, what was he studying for.
What was supervisors like, the people that he was working with.
Exactly. Yeah, there's nothing here. So if you wanted to start the story at Aaron is in the Army and he lands in Iraq, go. Like, telling the story from there. All of the other stuff is just really insignificant because he doesn't give any detail of anything. It's all of a sudden I find myself in basic training after a couple of months after he's applied and then had to do the physical and all that. He gets there. Then all of a sudden I have a couple more weeks left of basic training, and now I'm in tech school and I'm almost done with that too. And now I'm home. So none of that ever had to be talked about.
When you judge a character, you judge them how they react through certain circumstances and environments. I mean, these specific things that he could tell us will tell us what we need to know about Aaron, right? Instead, he just tells us what just generally just makes a statement, and it is so. But we don't see it in action. We don't see anything about this. This is just Aaron telling us this is who Aaron is, you know? It's pretty typical of what he does, you know, whether it's drinking, smoking, drunk driving, whatever it is. As long as he proclaims that he doesn't do it anymore, it means he doesn't do it at all. I don't know what else to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just very Hallmark Channel, this conversation that he has with his mother on the phone. You know, she's on the other end crying. And of course, you know, I'm sure it would be upsetting for any mother and worrying to have their child away from them like that.
Not if your child was Aaron, it wouldn't.
Right, because finally he's out of the house. He's doing something.
Mom's really having a party.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think it's interesting, too, how Aaron is very judgmental of all the friends still hanging around at home.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah. like he's going nowhere with their lives. And I'm really curious if that's what Lorne believed when he went to the Air Force. If he was thinking that way about everyone at home, his brothers, his sister.
And the sentence here straight after it made him feel good, knowing that what he was doing was important to many lives. I think it's what we've spoke about a lot. As Lorne likes to think of it, well, Lorne likes the idea that people think of him as a hero, without actually doing what's required. Which, you know, it's just intrinsic to his. To his life, to the way he does things. It's mental, you know. It's like even with the Betty situation, he probably started that job thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do a good job for this woman." And then when things got even a little bit of a challenge, it's like, "I'm just going to take her money and leave." It's not my fault. It's their fault. I didn't get the market. You know what I mean? It's wow.
And I think too. Sorry, Shane.
No,
I think it's interesting that he talks about he doesn't like being told what to do a couple of different times here. And to a certain degree, I don't think people would really enjoy that part of the military, of being told what to do, every single thing. And of course, that's his experience in prison too. He doesn't have
not just
control
prison. His contract we went over.
Oh, of course. No, absolutely. But I mean, physically not being able to make decisions on his own. He's fully controlled when he's in prison, just like when he was in the military, that he had a whole lifestyle that he had to adhere to for their rules. But I think it is interesting that he points that out, because that is very Lorne. He does not like to be told what to do.
Told him to go fuck himself.
Well, in fact, speaking of smoking, he was clean from smoking for 5 years when he was in prison. He gets out and immediately starts smoking again. And when he was asked why he did that, because Lorne is on this perpetual journey of quitting smoking. You know, he's going to try, he's trying and all that stuff. But when he was asked, well, you weren't smoking that whole time when you were in prison, why did you start again? Because he wanted to rebel. How fucking pathetic is that?
Do you remember?
Yeah,
do you remember?
He said the same thing about drinking. Do you remember? He said, he doesn't like being told what to do by his probation officer. We certainly know that.
Terms.
Right. But he also said, I was rebelling against them. I think he was talking to you, Tiffany, and you asked, well, why'd you do it? Well, I was rebelling. Yeah. And you're like, that's really stupid, because you're only hurting yourself. You're not hurting your probation officer. They'll throw your ass in jail. They don't give a shit. You're hurting yourself and your own future.
I seem to recall also in that September 2015 home visit that 37 phone calls and 6 hours document we went over. There was an issue that Lorne had with authority there too. He was talking about how they were, I guess, getting too close to figuring out what's going on in his life, and he wanted privacy, and had an issue with it. And they actually had to talk him down, because apparently, I guess, he got really angry. So he came right out with it there and said, basically, I don't want to be told what to do. It didn't last long, though.
No.
He wanted privacy from his probation officer. And
the probation officer's asking, private questions. Is this woman your girlfriend? Have you guys had sex? I mean, that's those kinds of questions that are required to be answered. Are usually directed to somebody who is not free at all. So,
well, that's part of the price you pay when you commit, a felony like Lorne did. I understand. I wouldn't want anybody asking me those questions either, but that's the way it goes.
Of course, none of us would. I mean, he basically gives up all of his constitutional rights, everything. He is not a free person. He's considered somebody who's on parole, not just probation, parole. Supervised probation in the federal system replaces what used to be federal parole.
So it's actually a good point. We've talked about Lorne hates being told what to do and whatnot, which maybe more than some or whatever, but like you've just alluded to, from the moment that Chris Hansen walked out, he was never going to be a free man ever again. You know, his freedom is, you know, to the degree that we have, at least, or even any normal person. He's he's supervised for life. He's a registered sex offender for life.
Yeah, they could. Let me see your phone. They could do that anytime they want.
Yeah.
Unannounced visits. Things like that. He's basically he's in prison without the walls.
Yeah, and rightly so. I think do we say that the most prominent part, really the only part that warrants any kind of mulling over is Aaron's relationship with his mother. It's the only time we get to hear him speak to anybody in the whole of chapter 2, and it's just basically, oh, I'm going to be gone, oh, I'm sad, but I'm really proud of you. That's pretty much all that fucking happens, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, he really had to highlight that statement from his mother, that she's proud of him, and how that made him feel. But it's again, it's a lazy chapter, and Tiffany's right. Yeah. It could have entirely been skipped over and just started up with his time in Iraq, rather than giving us, that pointless little summary.
Well, it's amazing to me what is pointless to us is important. Is what's important to him. This also, the lack of awareness about what he's doing. Obviously, like the relationship between Aaron and his mother. On its face, it doesn't seem weird, but the way he keeps pushing it and the way he smiles when he keeps remembering she said, "I'm proud of you," that's super weird.
Yeah, and also he mentions his mother and penetrated deep in the same sentence. I would definitely say the relationship is weird.
Jesus, I didn't think that. But it's just that it's funny how Lorne thinks that this is something that makes his character honorable. These are one of his good qualities.
Yes.
And it's really the only thing he, like Amanda said, the only thing he had a dialogue about or described as it was happening, rather than just recount an event that happened. Oh, I ended up in Fort, whatever it is. But it's just weird that he thinks that, because you got to remember, this character, we all consider it to be self-inserted to a certain extent. So he's inserting all these values and virtues into it too. And this mother thing, and again, on its face, it seems okay, but the way he overdoes it and the way he overreacts to it and the way his sun and moon are, that's what it is for him. It's just weird. And for him to think we wouldn't think it's weird is funny.
One of the most interesting elements to Lorne, and any kind of person who you would define as, whether you think Lorne's evil or not, we can all agree that he's not, that he's a bad person. He doesn't, but he sees himself as a good person who's been the victim of people and bad circumstances and bad luck. And that rings true in this. It's like, think of the situation he's in when he's writing this. He's in prison for trying to commit statutory rape on a 13-year-old girl, or what he believed. And he has the sort of audacity to start virtue signaling from this book. It's infuriating, but I find it very, very interesting, because I'm a sort of studier of human behaviour, as we all are to some degree. It's not like I am any more than others, but maybe I read a few more books or whatever. I don't know, but the human condition, and even the very deep philosophical questions about the nature of what we are, this is another facet of that. It's like, why does a person who the rest of society views as being the lowest of the low, not just someone who's robbed a shop, but he still sees himself as being good and writes a book about it? It's mental. It's absolutely. I find it just.
Well, this shows he doesn't know what good is, if anything. Like, what do we know about this Aaron character? I mean, what can we say? Do we like him? Does anybody like him? I'm asking seriously. Does anybody like him?
I don't know enough about him. There's no character there. It's like asking, do we like Kayla?
That's true.
There's nothing to like or dislike. at least with Kayla, there was more material with Kayla, but you got a tiny bit of a sense of her personality in the ways that she would say certain things, like when she asked Lauren, "Don't you got a bed?" You just get a little peek at like what this little girl might be like,
and just throwing Derek in there, you know. I mean, she didn't have to do that.
But Aaron is just there's nothing to like or dislike.
I think there's a lot to dislike. You know, I mean, seems like a bootlicker. You know, somebody who, you know,
I don't dislike him because there's nothing. His character doesn't make sense. Like his motivations of what he believes in are unclear. He desperately wants to join the military but can't stand taking orders. He's a mummy's boy. He seems to have one friend. He just randomly wakes up in random places at the beginning of military without any idea of how he got there. He talks to himself. He stares at clocks. It's like, who the fuck is this guy?
He values his pride.
He talks about how much his mother loves him, but he never talks about how much he loves her.
Great point.
Or misses her. Yeah. It's all just her, well, using her.
Yeah, she's fulfilling her role of being worried and being proud of him. And I think it's funny how he waited a few long seconds for his mother to absorb the news. That's a huge assumption. Maybe she doesn't need to absorb the news, and they're just sitting there in silence, and she's like, "Are you done? Is that it?"
She even said she was expecting it. She wasn't surprised by it.
Right.
She didn't need to absorb it. She had been preparing herself for it.
Yeah. And I think Aaron's a big fucking weirdo because even, again, we have another instance of where he's talking to himself or he's staring at the phone, not moving. He's just smiling at the phone when they end their call. Why are you doing that? So either he's talking to himself, looking at inanimate objects, concentrating on them a lot, like the clock and the phone. He's sitting there doing that. It's really weird.
It's like staring at Kayla's picture for an hour.
Yeah.
Just sitting there and staring at it.
Yeah. He was lying about that too.
Shall we move into chapter 3?
Yeah.
It's a big chapter.
Sure.
Well, I mean, we can always, even if we don't get through it, we don't have
anything to get us close to the sex scene. Let's get going.
Listen, it'll happen when it happens, dude. Right, okay. Shane, while you're trying to jump ahead, do you want to read this paragraph?
Yeah. Give me a second. Aaron looked down at his watch as he stood beside his fellow soldiers, dressed in his BDUs with his backpack securely fastened around him. 4:30 a.m. Iraq time. This was it. He thought to himself, "This is the moment I've been waiting. Excuse me. This is the moment I've waited so long for and trained so hard for." He could feel his anxiety grow when he fell in behind his fellow soldiers to step aboard the plane that was to carry his unit of 51 soldiers into Iraq. It's really hard to read his writing sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
His unit leader, Staff Sergeant Buchanan, was the last man to step aboard the plane before they closed the door and headed for the runway. Okay, this is it.
Yeah, we've yet again, haven't we just had another big jump from like 1 minute is in the recruiter's office, the next minute is just a couple of weeks into training, the next minute he's getting on an aeroplane with 51 soldiers. It's like,
and he's in Iraq. What happened to Kuwait? I thought he was going to Kuwait first. So I guess we fast forward over the Kuwait experience. Who knows? But this is okay. So now we know where he is. We don't really know much about him other than the fact that he still seems to be bewildered as to what's going on
still
around
clock
him.
Watching as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's another clock. I thought we were done after the first chapter. Okay. And I don't know. I got nothing.
I got nothing. Brilliant. Yeah, there's not really a lot to say other than it just jumps from place to place without any thread. You know, it's a little bit like Lorne's life, really. He just kind of walks around aimlessly, waits for stuff to happen, you know.
Yeah, and you know, when you introduce a character's name like Staff Sergeant Buchanan, typically you're gonna hear about him later. You know, otherwise, why specify? You could just say the sergeant in charge or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think what he's doing is he's going around and he probably knows a Buchanan. I'm going to put you in my book. You know, same thing with Aaron, and I'm surprised Vern's not in here.
Wasn't there a Predator called Buchanan from one of the Stings?
Yeah, I think it does ring a bell, that name.
He was military too.
That's right. He was.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But this was written prior to those things, I think. To that Sting, I think.
Yeah,
I think
that
Sting was 2015. I wonder if he knows.
Lorne was the last one.
Oh no, Buchanan was Hansen versus Predator.
Right, I think that was 2015.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I thought we meant
it's just a coincidence, but.
All right, we can keep moving. This is great. We can make more.
I think Amanda James's turn to read this paragraph. She's not read anything yet.
Aaron closed his eyes when he felt the airplane picking up speed. He could feel the bumps from the runway easily through the soles of his combat boots on the bottom of his feet. When he felt his body move at an uneven angle as the nose of the plane began to lift off the ground and speed into the air. He said a silent prayer for himself, his family, and for his fellow soldiers. He opened his eyes to find his unit leader, Sergeant Buchanan, staring at him.
Oh, he brought up again.
He gave him a smile as his leader gave him a thumbs up for reassurance. He fidgeted with the excess strap from his backpack belt while a million things ran through his mind. And I need you to scroll up a little bit if you want.
Fuck you. I mean, again, we don't know anything about you now.
Still, we're not getting anything, are we? Let's be honest.
He used the wrong soles of his combat boots.
Yes,
that irritated me.
He said a silent prayer for himself.
The flight to Iraq seemed to take forever. He wasn't sure he was prepared for what he was going to see when he got off the plane, but he knew there was nothing he could do about it now. That's a good way to think, I guess.
He's thinking about deserting.
Oh, well.
I guess I'm stuck here. Can't jump off the plane.
Oh, my God. Is there anything to... he said a silent prayer. He's a bit of a, he's a very nice guy, isn't he? He said a silent prayer for himself, first of all. So, he's looking after himself first, his family, and then for his fellow soldiers. So he's kind of a bit idealistic in the way he's been written. He's like quite, not intentionally kind of like this, if you get what I'm saying. Lorne's wrote him as some kind of heroic figure, hasn't he?
Yeah, so he's going to have faith as well.
What, sorry?
He's going to have faith.
Faith.
So he's going to believe to
he's not an atheist.
God, pray.
God's sake.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Okay. Yeah, not anything to take from that, guys?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. All right. I'll read the next bit. Aaron felt, it's probably not wise, but I will do. Aaron felt his stomach suddenly turn very warm when he felt the plane begin to descend. We've got more about this plane journey than any other part of his story so far. We've got 3 paragraphs. Even his fucking training or recruitment or anything, nothing has been. Anyway,
his sex scene has like 10 paragraphs.
10 chapters. In just moments, he would be landing in the country that would change his life forever. Well, thanks for the spoiler.
Sorry about that.
It's like, get mind off. So why does that belong in the kind of contents of the story here? In just moments, he would be landing in the country that would change his life forever. Okay, I mean, do we? Never mind. He felt the.
Well, not even speaking of. Yeah, he jumped from time right away from present to future. It's like a spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you don't tell us at this point what's going to happen in the later in the book. So you're going to tell us something significant is going to happen now. Generally speaking, if it's a book or story like this, you're going to know that some shit's going to go down. But you don't need him to tell you. Something's going to, it's a silly way of writing. And why do we need to know, like, he felt the jolt of the plane? Well, of course he fucking did. He's on an aeroplane. Like, why do we need to know, like, when he felt on the soles of his fucking shoes, like a bit of fucking
Because he wants
vibration.
You to be there, Andrew.
Huh?
He wants you to be Aaron and feel everything Aaron feels.
I don't want to fucking feel what Aaron feels. It's pissing me off.
He thinks that's descriptive writing. But like we talked about last time, he totally missed the point that that a writer should be descriptive about things that matter and further along the story.
Yeah.
And the excess seat belt strap and the thumbs up from his sergeant and the nausea in his stomach, it doesn't matter. But he thinks that's the mark of a good story.
Well, he's getting quite detailed here. So he says his limbs went numb and his stomach felt as if the food... Well, thank you for making me feel sick there. He swallowed hard and beat... What? He swallowed hard and beat the rising gorge back down into his stomach. What the fuck is...
We're starting to learn about his anatomy.
He's like just chucking up in his mouth. Like, we don't... he could have...
Apparently, this is what plane rides do to people.
I mean, he's not said anything about like him having problems flying. He's a bad flyer or something. It's just never mind. I
think he just liked that phrase. He wanted to throw it in there.
Has Lorne ever?
I think there's a lot of that.
Do we know if Lorne's ever flown?
Yes.
Yes,
right.
He has.
Okay. Okay, as the plane began to slow to a crawl, as he pulled the release handle on his seatbelt, he repositioned himself to stretch and prepared to sit back from the plane. He had expected to hear a lot of noise and see explosions in the... What? Just at the... What? At the fucking airport? What did he...
Yeah, he's in Iraq.
He's getting
There's
into...
a war, so it's going to be all around just explosions.
Oh my god!
There's going to be explosions all around that American military base. It's like, oh my god. He had expected to hear a lot. Okay, but he was happy to find it was quiet in the dark early hours. He hadn't planned on it raining. What? He hadn't planned on it raining? Well, what is he fucking planning the weather? What does he? He hadn't planned on it raining like it was, but he would be outside only long enough to go from the... I'm just bewildered by what the fuck he's yapping on about.
He meant to say he wasn't expecting it to be raining. He just has a different way.
Yeah, the weather is now, happening to him.
I would argue that, like, he's just had a very traumatic plane ride. He's landing in Iraq. His mother misses him. A bit of water is the least of his problems.
And it sounds like Aaron was completely blindsided of what it was going to be like for him to go there. Oh my God, I'm landing. And he's almost in a panic. Like, I don't know what he was thinking about before and I guess, of course, something's going to be more real when it's happening right at that moment but it's like none of the training happened. He wasn't expecting, he had this vision.
Probably wasn't paying attention.
In Iraq, and everyone's at war there. You just hear gunfire. There's explosions. There's planes flying overhead, dropping bombs. That's what it's going to be 24/7. And it's as if he didn't have any training at all. It had no idea what it was going to be like.
That's a good point, and that's why missing out on that important element of the book isn't a good idea, because that is the perfect opportunity for us to know about him, to know about his skills, his mental strength, and we know none of that. We know nothing other than he's nearly vomiting in his own mouth when the plane's jumping up and down on the runway.
We could actually fill in that gap now of his training, and if we did, it would describe how he wasn't learning anything. and how he's falling asleep in class.
He got like he got in trouble during his training, so he spent it all in a little prison cell.
Student. None of this training took at all. So
he was 87 in training as well.
He was 8 exactly.
Well, he doesn't like being told what to do, so he rebelled by not paying any attention at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was late all the time, whatever. But that kind of fills in this gap now. This kid didn't learn anything from this overwhelming training that he just described.
Yeah, maybe that's why it was left out.
I don't know. It's just he speaks in results. He doesn't speak in methods or anything like that. And that's the only thing I could think of. But to a certain extent, there's some honesty here.
What, from him or the character?
He's a dullard, yeah. Exactly. So,
what have we actually learned about Aaron in these few paragraphs? He's a bit naive.
He gets motion sickness.
Yeah, he gets motion sickness. He's ridiculously naive and thinks Iraq is just a countrywide explosion.
Yeah.
He's religious.
Yeah. He's
he didn't pay attention during training.
Well, he's religious when it suits him. He's afraid. He's nervous when the plane is landing, so he quickly says a prayer. But I don't think we get any other glimpses into his religious beliefs.
Yeah. And that's it, really, isn't it? We don't get anything else. The flight seemed to take forever, so he's impatient. He wasn't sure he was bird, but he knew there was nothing he could do about it now, so he's a pussy. Okay. Right. Tiff, do you want to just read this bit and just this one paragraph, and then we can mull over it? Don't jump ahead.
Sorry, I just got so excited with the last chapter. I just had to keep reading it.
I didn't want her to stop either.
Well, you've been given your first warning, okay.
Okay. The unit had all entered the hangar and sat on the floor as Staff Sergeant Buchanan after removing their backpacks. Aaron felt the concrete floor getting more and more uncomfortable after sitting through 2 hours of what the next 3 days' agenda would be. After the 2-hour lecture, the unit gathered up their backpacks and made their way to their bunks. Aaron located his bunk and began unpacking his gear. He had his gear all spread out over the bottom bunk when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to find his friend, Staff Sergeant Paul Pabla, there with a smile on his face and his index finger pointing to the top bunk, indicating to Aaron that the bottom bunk was his.
This is a good paragraph. So much to talk about. First of all, what was it? He had a 2-hour lecture. He doesn't tell us what it was about. So apparently Aaron wasn't paying attention. Then they had this kind of, looks like the budding of a romantic relationship between him and this Sergeant Pabla. But Pabla hasn't been introduced previously, was he?
No.
So we just find out now that he's an old friend. Okay.
Right.
But generally you don't become friends with your superiors.
Right. And why would they be in the same bunk?
Yeah. I think that the sergeant would probably have his own section or something, but maybe people in the chat could tell us about this, but it's also weird the way, again, this is kind of consistent with Aaron's little kiss ass personality. He's got the sergeant of the platoon or the whatever it is. And of course they're friends, and it seems like he's almost saying that the other people, his other fellow troopers are beneath him.
Yeah, this is important. You're right, Shin, to point that it's like what I'm trying to establish here. He turned around to find his friend, so he's an arse licker, right? He's made mates with the sergeant, right? And the sergeant's put him on the top bunk. So what has he done to warrant that? Because it doesn't really make any sense at this point, because you're like, right, he's only been there for, they've not done anything yet, have they? They've got there. He's had a lecture. He's not had any time to establish favoritism among the supervisors.
Right. But Aaron's a natural guy you'd want to be best buddies with, and usually the people in power recognize that, and they want him to be their right-hand man.
Yeah, he has an amazing personality. It doesn't say anything about what Aaron's rank is.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's whatever the. What branch is this again? Army, Marines?
Yeah, I forgot
Army.
actually.
Yeah.
So we have like
those things should be clarified for the reader.
Yeah. No, exactly.
We can't just assume.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that he's below the rank of sergeant. Sergeant is definitely not something you like. What are you, ensign or lieutenant first? Forgive me, I don't know where, but I know that sergeant isn't what you start out at. That's it. Something.
No, you start I think it's private first class. I think corporal, then sergeant, and a whole bunch of.
So potentially, this is quite this is something that would take a little bit of time and effort to get to that rank, and without any effort at all, he's getting favoritism and put on the top bunk by the sergeant. So he's like a Mary Sue, this character. And one of the establishments of Mary Sue characters is they get praise and admiration without ever earning it. They just magically are liked and respected by everybody.
Being on the top bunk isn't a privilege.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Is it preferable to be on the top bunk?
No.
I think
you guys reading ahead.
I don't know about the army.
Well, I already know the story.
Oh, okay. Well,
sorry, can I just clarify something? Did you say being on the top bunk isn't seen as being? I thought it was.
Inferior,
because you don't want to be on the bottom because it's easier to, you don't have to listen to the, you get pissed on or whatever. So I was under the impression, because when I watch like prison dramas and whatnot, the top bunk is always seen as the more preferred.
Maybe it's different in prison. I think, didn't Lorne have bunks? And maybe in prison the lower bunk was and I think he even talked about that. How it was more preferable, the lower bunk. I don't know why.
Well, I
but
think
this could be
you don't have to climb up every time or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if there's some significance to what Lorne has wrote here, because he was spreading his stuff on the bottom bunk. I mean, this might be overkill, but that's why we're analysing the book and see if we can get an insight into Lorne's fucking bizarre character for some reason. But the sergeant who he's had to point out is his friend, which there doesn't seem to be any reason why he would establish the friend already, because nothing's happened, has said, no, you're not on the bottom, you're on the top. So there must be a reason why that's happened. Now, don't forget.
Maybe Lorne likes the top.
Sorry?
Maybe Lorne likes. Maybe it's a sexual thing.
Well, I mean, don't forget, I've not read this before, so I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm trying to find logic within the story, because that's the idea.
These two they do have a very strange and very fast making relationship.
Well, we've already established that. We don't even know how they've become friends. I would imagine.
No, but they get even closer, Andrew. I remember reading this chapter.
It's not before. Fucking him who has the sex scene with us, is it? Let's hope not.
No.
Oh, right, okay. So we have some dialogue here now. Right. Oh, no way, Aaron said with a smile spreading across his face. Oh, yes way. Oh, fuck off. Paul replied, grinning back at him. Rank has its privileges, he said as he smiled and patted Aaron on the back. Well, I guess I can be thankful for a good bunkmate. Anyway, Aaron, what? I guess I can be thankful.
What a stupid conversation. What a fucking stupid conversation. If I heard two guys talking like this, I would think there's a camera somewhere.
Well, there kind of is, really. Once he gathered up his things from the bottom bunk and placed them on the top bunk, he realised he wasn't all that upset about sharing. Hang on a minute. This sergeant's sharing a bunk with him. This isn't how it wouldn't be this way, would it?
I don't know, but I wouldn't think so.
Right.
I don't
know. Just couldn't believe
it. You have like movies like Full Metal Jacket and some other movies where they have where they show training in bunkhouses or whatever. The sergeant is always in a separate room. He's not out there with his men.
He's not going to share it with the grunts, is he? It's not going to. It's not going to happen. And like, he was lucky enough to get one of his. You just couldn't believe that out of all the guys in the unit, he could have gotten to share a bunk with. He was lucky enough to get one of his good. So he's not only a friend; he's a good friend. Well, how has that happened?
We don't know anything about him.
No, but there's not been enough time for him to establish a good friendship with this guy. He's been there. How long has he been in this fucking wherever they are?
Oh, so we are to assume that that's how they know each other?
He just sat through a 2-hour lecture, and then he's just finding his bunk for the first time, so they couldn't have been there long. We don't know. He doesn't make any of that clear, not yet at least.
According to the story, there was a treacherous plane journey. He arrived after nearly vomiting. He had literally straight after that a 2-hour lecture, which we know nothing about, and now he's being shown to his bunk. If you've been shown to your bunk, you've not been there over a night. So how is he? Mm-hmm. How has he made friends with?
Maybe he was next to him while the rising gorge was coming up in the airplane.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I guess that's possible that they sat near each other, but he doesn't tell us any of that. Just like he magically teleported and found himself in basic training or whatever, he magically teleported a new best friend by his side. It's all very mysterious.
It all no coupons for Karen. As just put, it all depends on what their role is. If the sergeant is a combat leader, he will be with his soldiers all the time. So there is a potential that could have happened. But even if that's the case, it does seem a bit odd because we're not being told about any kind of structure, and we don't know how this guy is mates with him.
Well, it could be that everybody else chose their own bunkmates, and nobody liked this guy, so he had to be with the sergeant.
No, he did. This Paul fella does.
Well, I don't know if Aaron had any choice what his bunk was. What I'm saying is, other people may have decided, switch bunks so they could be with their friends and stuff. He didn't have any friends. It's kind of like musical chairs. There was no chair left, so he had to go to, he had to have his sergeant.
I just
like when you're in school and all the other kids choose their friends, and the teacher has to be
one of them. Yeah.
Kid. Yeah.
There's some echoing, by the way.
Yeah, there is. I think it's when I talk. Pretty sure it's not me. I've got my headphones on really low.
Why don't we test it? Is it me, folks?
I'm not sure.
Somebody else goes.
I noticed it when Andrew spoke.
Which, I'm pretty sure it's not me. It could be. Has anybody got the audio from the stream or coming through the speakers or headphones or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I don't.
It's muted.
No.
I don't hear it anymore. Do you guys?
Yeah, I don't.
Right, okay. Well, that's
I never heard it.
Right, well, that's good. That's all we need. It could have been me, actually. I can't blame you this time, Shane. Right, someone else want to read this next gem?
Okay. Over the next 3 days, I could see a montage on this one. Over the next 3 days, Aaron and Paul spent their time getting to know the base and the areas that surrounded it. They distributed ammunition throughout the base and took the necessary classes they needed for out in the field.
That was not the next paragraph. There was one right above it.
Oh, well, I'm on Skype.
We read that. I read that, Tiff.
Yeah, I thought we read it.
Oh, sorry. I must have zoned out.
Apologize to Shane
I wish
immediately.
it was the wrong paragraph.
That's
that
a
paragraph
fascinating
sucked.
book. How could you zone out?
Sorry about that.
That was nothing. So, okay. So now he's on first name basis with him, I guess.
Would they be distributing the ammunition? Listen, you'll have to forgive me for my ignorance. Would someone who's been there literally less than a day be distributing ammunition? I would have thought. Well, he's saying he's been through his training.
Idea.
Right, okay. Well, let's not mull on that too much. I don't suppose it's important.
Right.
Don't ask me. I thought he was working on Humvees. That's what he wanted to do. Okay. Speaking of which, you want me to continue?
Please.
The fourth day, Aaron and Paul and a couple of other guys not worth mentioning. They worked with drove. Okay, fuck. Is this me?
A couple of other guys they worked with.
Okay. Drove a Humvee into the city to get to know the area there. Again, they're doing this again. Aaron drove especially slow because he was also looking around at all the new sites. They were pointing out places that had been bombed and gunfights that had taken place between the American soldiers and the insurgents. They noticed that this particular area of the city was almost deserted because of the damage that had been done to the buildings. There were people still there, but many that hung about in the streets, but not many that hung about in the streets. Okay, kind of got a feel for it. I don't know. Again, it's like a 12-year-old's writing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to make it real, but he's not. Like of course, if there's going to be massive damage in certain areas, it's not going to be affluent with life, is it? It's just fucking painful. This, it really is.
I don't understand the mission of looking around and getting familiar with the sites. I mean, I would think there'd be some structure to that, especially in a war zone. Just sightseeing around doesn't seem like that would be a safe thing to do.
Yeah, it's weird. Right, okay. Things seem to be getting interesting now. Aaron quickly slammed on the brakes when a man ran out in front of the Humvee and stood there blocking its path. He couldn't figure out why the man would want to run in front of a moving vehicle, especially one as large as a Humvee. Aaron sat there and looked at the man for what felt like 20 minutes, but in reality was nothing but mere seconds. Okay. The man had the second description of the book. We're only on chapter 3. The man had short black hair with a long beard, an athletic build, and was about 5'9", wearing torn brown pants and a white long-sleeve shirt. Aaron looked over at Paul, then they suddenly realised that this guy was a suicide. Well, do you not think that after the training he couldn't figure out why the man would want to run out in front of a moving vehicle, right? So he's made a visual inspection of him, and he's not. It's like, oh right, now I know why a guy is running out in front of the vehicle, heavily armed with explosives and yelling things.
Yeah, but let me describe what he looks like first. let me just simply stop and take note of all these things.
And the thing is, he's not building up any tension, is he? Like, this is, I would imagine this is supposed to be. This is the only thing of note that's happened in the book, really. But he's describing it in a really odd way. Like, you've got to build tension. You're reading it, and it's like, oh my god, fucking, there's a suicide bomber there. It's like, we kind of figured that out. As soon as he said he couldn't figure out why someone would want to run in front of a moving vehicle, that's what I thought at that point. And then by the time you finish the boring description, you don't care anyway.
Like, you wouldn't have been taught this in training that you'd fell asleep through.
The whole event is just the way he's written it is so boring. This should be a terrifying event that would have a ton of emotion and description. A man blew himself up in front of you, and all they can do is, oh, well, good thing that's over.
Why is it so important that he has an athletic build?
Or his height, or his outfit, his hairstyle.
He's not an athletic build anymore, is he? It's like, what's the fucking point?
No.
And hang on, let's just read that bit. Aaron looked over at Paul, then they suddenly realised this guy was all four of the men ducked down just in time as the man in the road blew himself into pieces. After the explosion, all of them stood up, looked at each other with a sign of release, as they were all still alive. I can't believe that just happened, Aaron said. We better call in the base and let them know what has happened. Paul stated we'll have to cordon off the area until the police get the mess clear. It's like a comedy.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Can you believe that just happened? Shouldn't they have told us about this ahead of time? You should add this to training.
I have more reaction
Simpson.
when I see
I'm laughing already.
TV.
It's not a comedy.
We have to cordon off the area until the police. Okay, what is it? I don't know. I don't understand any of this, but it sounds like it's a cross between. That seems like a wartime activity, like combat, and then I don't know many situations where the police come in afterwards to investigate.
I was just
the
thinking
battle.
that. Why would they get involved at this point? And also, why is this guy just blew himself up in front of the vehicle to the point where he's not done anything other than blow himself up?
Yeah, and why he's such a shitty suicide bomber too. Why didn't he go under the truck or dive in there?
Exactly. What was the purpose of
All
him
they had to
doing
do was
it?
duck.
Right. All they did was duck at the last moment.
Ooh, that one just went right over my head.
Jeez.
At least it was a bit of an entertainment. It's like, oh, we better call in and let them know what's happened.
And how surprised can you be, Aaron, that you can't believe it just happened?
Yeah, I must apologise. Lorne does go into it here now. Who wants to read this bit? Tiffany.
Amanda's turn. Tiffany, yeah.
They called into the base to inform them of the suicide bomber and that it killed no one else but the bomber himself. Then they got out of the Humvee to rope off the area. When Aaron stepped out, he grew pale at the sight of human flesh that had been stuck to the vehicle and the building walls around him. As he took his first step after closing the door to the Humvee, he felt an odd feeling under his left boot that felt like he had stepped on a thin carpet. He lifted his foot to find a piece of human scalp stuck to the bottom of his boot. That did it for him. Oh, God, he exclaimed as he pulled the scalp from his boot, turned, and lost his breakfast in the middle of the street. Paul ran to his side.
That is the funniest part, that last sentence.
He just threw up in the middle of the street.
Oh, are you okay? You're throwing up.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's funny is because you would think that a suicide bomber who had explosives would do more than just send pieces of himself around. He'd do some damage, like to the Humvee or something. Right?
Yeah, there appears to be nothing. He just has his body.
Just the guy blew himself. Internal combustion, whatever, spontaneous internal combustion. That's basically what we had here.
Yeah.
But Paul ran to his side after he threw up.
He's gay.
Like, buddy, medic, get me a medic. Jesus.
But it's right. Okay, I understand.
I don't want anybody running to my side if I'm throwing up. Let's just get that straight, guys. Don't do that.
You need him to rub his back.
I'm fine. Yeah, nobody needs to hold my hair. Don't worry about it.
It's weird how he explains it as well. Lost his breakfast in the middle of the street. It's just, I don't know. I know people sometimes use that kind of terminology to describe people being sick, but I don't know. It's kind of out of place. Well, not that there's any kind of specific tone to the structure of this book, to be honest. It's just a fucking clusterfuck, innit, really? And
by the way, it does not say "oh God" in the book. That was edited in there.
You stop laughing.
Oh shit! I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it says "oh God."
That'd be great.
Can you imagine if someone tuned in just now and saw that?
Right.
I'm sorry. I just can't get over the Paul ran to his side thing. I just, somebody came running over. Dude, leave me the fuck alone. Puking,
well,
man.
Hey, there's a kind of a bromance going on here, dude. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I know.
Are you all right, Aaron? Yeah. There's just some things that even the army can't prepare a person for, I guess. That was one. That was one thing that none of us was prepared for. Let's get this area roped off before anyone else steps into a mess. What the who are these people?
Seems like Aaron wasn't prepared for anything.
Plane journeys, training, fucking bunks, bits of skull
and he
attached
doesn't
to
look
his
where
feet.
He's going when he's eating, when he's walking. He just steps in things.
Wonder what they're roping off.
I was wondering how we
managed
to make their own little.
And the thing is, as
design.
well, do you know what was
the
weird?
guy splattered everywhere.
Yeah,
Right.
The body had exploded, right? He was standing right in the middle of it, which means there would have been corpse bits everywhere. Why did that one sudden bit? Why did he step in it for a start without seeing it? And then
Especially
that
with an
took him over
athletic
the
build,
edge.
man.
He just saw somebody explode in front of him.
Who knows? I mean, I wouldn't know, but I assume it's more than just the area is wider than you could actually rope off, and plus it would have some weird corners and stuff. You know, I mean, what are they roping off anyway? I mean, what are they going to send in CSI? What are they doing?
That's a good point.
We pretty much know what happened. We don't really need to investigate that.
Yeah, let's get our best scientists down here immediately. I want to know. I want answers. No problem.
What kind of build did he have? That's what we need to know.
That was the one thing none of us was prepared for. So they didn't tell you that cat. Well, right. None of this makes any sense at all.
Paul seems like a douchebag too.
Yeah. Right. Whose turn is it? Amanda James, you want to read this bit?
Oh, yeah. The next couple of nights, Aaron found it hard to sleep and hard to concentrate on his work during the day. He and Paul had both stayed up talking about the incident of the suicide bomber on the third night. It seemed to help them both face what had happened, and they were both able to sleep better. From that time on, whenever they found something that was bothering them enough so that they couldn't sleep or couldn't concentrate on their work, they would talk to each other so they could get it out of their system and not have to keep it bottled up inside. They're getting very close.
Yeah, and
they stay up late at night talking.
He describes really silly, obvious things like people talk to each other so they feel better. Well, how about that dialogue? Can we see that dialogue? Can we have a conversation? You can't just describe things that we need to see.
I wouldn't want to see it.
Well, that's true.
I don't know. It's like if one of them, I'm getting sick, I go to the bathroom. The other one would probably follow to help. It's weird. I know I can't get over that. Paul went by his side after he was puking. That says it all. That says it all to me.
He might have been puking as well, for all we know.
Couldn't concentrate on his work. Ugh.
And can we just establish, right? Is it possible that Paul and he both started at that same rank? Can you start at sergeant level if you are some kind of super cadet or whatever? Do you follow me? Because it doesn't make any sense that.
No, I don't think so. I think
I have no idea, but I would not think so.
No, I wouldn't either. That's what makes this. You see, you've got a fundamental problem here, right? The most relationship between two characters we've had is him and Paul, right? And that relationship doesn't seem to make any sense, but it's fundamental to the story. They've just been through a traumatic experience together, right? But we've had no dialogue between them. But that was not what we were prepared for, even though they've just joined the fucking military.
Can you believe that happened?
Yeah, that's it. Like it's like he has opportunities to do something of note within the story, and he doesn't. No dialogue, no nothing.
Yeah, the whole book is Lorne. Lorne will tell us rather than show us.
Yeah,
and any experiences or feelings or events, conversations, none of it is expressed through scenes. Describing. Yeah. I mean, we got the scene of the suicide bomber there, but it was so short and
devoid of any emotion or intensity, wasn't it?
Or detail. We got more detail about what the man looked like than anything else. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's all over the city. And that's it.
Right. Oh, wait. Over the next month, so we're skipping ahead here. But to be fair, that was the longest we've had in a kind of a day period, really. Over the next month, Aaron and Paul attended many training classes on how to react to improved improvised explosive device. How to close off specific areas after bombing and raids. How to raid houses and how to train Iraqi police? Well, what? Never mind. He kept busy, so there wasn't much time for a lot of recreation. In his off time, Aaron would either get on the computer and talk to his mother, there's a surprise, or call her on the phone. If he and Sergeant Pablo had any time, they would get in a game of basketball or play a couple of video games. Very close, aren't they? During the first month, there was a couple of rounds of mortar that hit the base that Aaron and Paul had to clean up. He was never bored, but always wished he could be in a little more of the action. Right. We're still not going anywhere, are we?
No. No, just another montage of Sergeant Pablo and Aaron running through the fields.
He doesn't...
rolling around.
Right. He doesn't have any other friends. Not a single other friend. It's just him and Paul all the time.
It's like this is the outline of the story, you know, like just like a holding sort of script. It's not even it's not a script, is it? But it's just like a first rough draft, basically, with minimal, with no dialogue. It's shit. Okay.
Well, what he's saying in that paragraph is that Aaron's getting itchy for some action.
Yeah, even though he's still fucking got PTSD from...
Yeah, he threw up after watching a guy blow himself up.
I know.
And couldn't sleep for days. And now he wants more action?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've not really explained how he's got over that.
Well, no, he did, because
he
they
talked to Paul.
Yep, Paul, and they got it out of their system, so they could get it out of their system and not have to keep it bottled up. That's what happened. So apparently they're good for each other. This is, yeah, it's funny, the action part of his book, or I should say, what's supposed to be one of the action parts of his book, is the most boring aspect of his book. His best stuff is when he goes home. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be a spoiler alert, but we got to get through this.
Right. It's your turn, Shane. Do you want to read this very impressive section of dialogue? I have no doubt.
Do you think we'll ever see any more of the action? Sorry. Well, do you think we'll ever see any more of the action than what we're seeing here, Paul? Aaron asked. Fuck, that's fucked. I can't read his shit. Yes, I do, Paul replied. And from what I've been hearing, it's not going to be long before we do. Aaron gave Paul a stunned but enthusiastic look after his. What have you heard? He asked as he leaned in closer to make sure he didn't miss a word of what Paul was about to tell him. Wow, that's fucked up and weird, man. Okay, so Paul's going to give up some military secrets to his best friend, I guess. I don't even know where to start on this. But what is it? Stunned but enthusiastic. What the fuck is that? Yes. Yes.
He sounds like he's having a fit.
Paul's got loose lips. Okay, so now you're right, Amanda. That experience didn't do anything for him. He needs to see more people blow up, more skulls in the bottom of his soles of his feet, SOLS. Is this still me? You want me to do that again, or?
Yeah, if you can do.
I'd rather not, because it really is a tongue twister.
Yeah. Just read this bit, and then you don't have to do for a while.
Well, from what Sergeant Buchanan was telling me, the Marines are pushing a group of insurgents toward the outskirts of Mosul, and we have to help corner them. We'll be going right in the middle of the action to repair any vehicles that break down and are expected to fight if necessary. So we'll have to go in with our weapons ready to fire. What is he doing? I mean, okay, so now they're fixing weapons. Vehicles. But I thought they were training police officers.
They're multi-skilled, these guys. You can do fucking everything.
Yeah. So basically, he's going to go into action, or actually be ready to fight if they need to while they're fixing vehicles. Got it. Okay. Somebody else, please.
Right, okay. When is all this supposed to happen? Aaron asked with anxiousness. Fucking hell, dude. Within the week, Paul replied, with a slight grin, knowing how much Aaron has wanted to be in the fighting. Have they made up the teams yet? Aaron asked. Let me guess, them two get to work together. Have they made up teams yet? Aaron asked, pushing to learn more of the situation. Yes, you and me are on the team with Private Baker, Private Baker and Private Gentry. Paul answered, major assholes coming next. Asshole, sir. Yes, major asshole. You like Spaceballs, innit? I've lots of sweeps. I've lots of creeps. Do Baker and Gentry know this? Know about this yet? No, I just found out about it this morning. I was supposed to wait until this evening to inform you all at the same time. So if anyone asks you, don't know anything about it yet.
Isn't he special? He's so special.
Aaron looked at his friend and smirked. All right.
Smirked?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so apparently Aaron gets to have information before the rest of the troops do.
Yeah, so we've just established that Sergeant Buchanan is a dickhead because you can't, if you're not supposed to tell.
No, that's Pablo. Not Buchanan told Pablo.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Pablo told.
Paul. Apologies, Paul. Pablo who's his best buddy, is divulging information to him that he shouldn't do, which means he's shit at his job.
They're secreted over in a corner from the rest of the troops, smiling, leaning in on each other, acting all weird, like in that paragraph. People saying, "What the fuck is going on over there?"
Yeah. For the rest of his day, he did his best to keep his mind on his work, although it wasn't easy. That night, he lay in his bunk thinking about being in the middle of the action. It took him a couple of hours to get to sleep. Over the next few days, his excitement grew more and more as he waited anxiously for word that the Marines had pushed the insurgents to the point where the army was now needed to help corner them. Right, so we are building up to something at least. Paul could see Aaron's anxiety. Fucking hell, anxious this, anxious that, anxiously. Fucking come up with some new words, dude. Paul could see Aaron's anxiety as he approached him. He'd been seeing it.
How about another one, Andrew?
What's that?
You got another one coming up.
I know you've been anxious for word for us. What? I know you've been anxious for word for us to go out into the action, Aaron. I just wish I could show your enthusiasm. Paul watched Aaron's shoulders fall because Aaron was hoping he was coming with word about the insurgents. Paul hesitated as he saw Aaron sigh, then watched a smile appear on Aaron's face when he blurted out, "We have to be packed out, ready to leave in 1 hour, while also changing our position to..." Well, obviously. But Aaron gave Paul a dumbfounded, I'm not surprised, dumbfounded look as he asked, "What do you mean changing our positions?" "We're not going in to work on vehicles, we're going in to fight," Paul explained, which the cannon knew anyway. What made them change our position? The insurgent kidnapped the taxi driver and are threatening to kill him if the demands are... What? So they're kidnapping local civilians to threaten the local civilians with the American military? I'm confused. The insurgents have kidnapped a taxi driver and are threatening to kill him if their demands are not met. Now, I'm not saying that, obviously putting aside people's motivations to protect innocent people, because that's what we do, but unless I'm missing something here, the kidnapping of a civilian, of that... Am I missing... Do you get what I'm saying? Why is that a big deal?
I have no idea. I'm not sure why that would be the reason why they're going off, or if that's how things go. But it's interesting that Aaron is so interested to go and fight. Like he can't wait to do it, but yet there's something happens in front of him and he throws up.
Yeah, exactly. It's conflicting. It's contradictory. Either you're looking forward to the bloodshed, or it makes you throw up, and you need to be comforted by Paul.
He's all over the place, and don't forget, he doesn't like flying either. This guy. So if they've got to fly to other locations, he's going to be chucking up.
Yeah. Well, you know, there was a period of like a couple of months where they fast forward, and I'm sure he stepped on a lot of skull pieces and stuff during then. So he probably got a little more hardened. Who knows?
Paul shifted gears in his shifted gears in his voice and tried to hide his nervousness. Let's get this stuff ready. I still have to inform Baker and Gentry. Aaron began loading ammunition in the Humvee while Paul fetched Baker and Gentry. When they returned, the four of them had the vehicle loaded and ready to move out in 40 minutes. Right, okay. So we don't have descriptions on these guys, but we have descriptions on dead suicide bombers that have got like. So we had Helen, the fucking receptionist. Now, unless they need a receptionist in fucking Mogul, and someone to fucking sit at a desk with a big name tag on, she's not going to pop up, is she? And that guy's in a million fucking pieces, and there's brain matter being cleaned up. So
I have a feeling Baker and Gentry are like the red suited security guys who go down on the planet in Star Trek. Always gets it first.
Yeah, the ensigns who always die. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, man. Who wants to drive? Paul asked. Aaron stepped forward. I'll drive. There's a fucking surprise. Okay, let's go then. Right, it's your turn, Tiffany.
No,
don't read ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were going to tell me. Thank you.
They all piled into the vehicle, Aaron in the driver's seat and Paul riding shotgun with Gentry and Baker in the back. We have to go to the police station first to let the Iraqi police know that we're here to help them, Paul explained.
Wouldn't that have been done by like the sort of communications people? Surely they'd have people doing that kind of stuff. Did you get what I'm saying?
Right.
The
yeah.
part of the big unit, they're going to be in communication with the Iraqi authorities, aren't they? They're not just going to fucking turn up at random places and start blowing shit up. Well, you'd think not, anyway.
Well, you would think that, yeah, but you can't really trust anything Lauren. You know, I don't know any of this. I don't know how any of this works, but I just naturally don't want to trust anything Lauren says because we know he didn't really do any research, or at least I highly doubt he did. Yeah. It's reading books, talking to people who have been over there. I wonder if his not to go off on a side topic too much, but I wonder if his bunkmate Aaron, did he say he was in Iraq?
You mean Paul?
No, I mean Lauren's
Aaron.
Real prison bunkmate.
Oh,
sorry, Amanda James, I didn't.
Yeah, no, that's what, because I wonder how much of the story he took from like experiences that his bunkmate told him.
Right.
He could, I mean, it depends on how much communication that they really had. Mm-hmm. This person may have told Lauren that he did go to Iraq and maybe here's something that happened. Who knows? He didn't really ever go into detail about that.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
The way Lauren is writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Amanda James? Can you read that? I'm just trying to split the reading duties up because it's difficult.
No, I don't want to do any of it anymore.
I'm not. Listen, dude, you're not getting off the hook because we've not forgotten this whole fucking charade is your idea because you didn't want to do the review yourself.
In my mind. I can't even speak
so
these
don't
words.
even. However, in the interest of fairness, I would ask Amanda James to read this, please, if that's all right.
Sure. Yep. Aaron pulled into the parking lot of the police station and parked near the entrance door. He turned the engine off and noted the shabby look the building held. All four of the men got out and walked toward the building. Upon entering it, they had to stand still for a moment to let their eyes adjust to the dimly lit room. They found the translator standing next to the clerk's desk. The man held out his hand to greet the soldiers.
What the fuck is their job? Are they working on vehicles or are they
dude,
MPs?
I don't know.
Hi, I'm Staff Sergeant Pabla. Is it Pabla or Pablo?
I think it changes later on.
It's whatever you want it to be.
I need to let the police know that we're here to help them.
What a useless sentence.
Hang on a minute. He's telling that's what they're in the police station.
He's talking to the translator.
Oh,
yeah.
right, okay. Well, you don't... Never mind. You don't speak to the... Right, forget it. The translator was an American. Paul could tell. He felt relieved that it would be easy to communicate with... It would be easy to communicate. Well, what has this got to do with anything?
I can't do it, man. I don't know how you... Tiffany and Amanda just breeze right through it. I can't do Lornanese, whatever the hell this is. This is strange. So, I can't say it out loud.
Basically, what Shim wants the girls to do all the hard work by wrapping it within a compliment. Yes. This is how clever this guy is. If only Lorne had some of your fucking, tenacity, Shin, he'd be a very dangerous creature. That's all I can say. Paul, I keep getting Aaron Paul in my head. Jesse from... Paul and Aaron stood watching the sergeant as he left the room and made his way down the narrow hall. Before he could return, they heard gunfire coming from nearby. Hey up. Paul, Aaron, Baker and Gentry rushed inside. He could have just said they all rushed inside. They reached the Humvee just in time to dodge a bullet that ricocheted off the police station. What part of the police station? There's some big bullet. They couldn't fight back until they found out which directions the shot. You just said one. A bullet. The shots were coming from. Then another bullet hit the police station closer to the Humvee this time. They're trying to hit the Humvee, Aaron asked himself. He asked himself, are they trying to hit the...
It's like the Three Stooges, man.
He doesn't need to communicate with his colleagues. He's just fucking asking himself over the radio. Aaron to Aaron, are they trying to hit the Humvee? I've no idea, Aaron. Why don't you ask Aaron?
It's very distracting in battle. To have your fellow soldier talking to himself. What?
Say what? One more time, motherfucker. Oh my god, this is funny. His question was answered as the next bullet twanged off the back of the Humvee. They're shooting from between those two buildings over there, Paul shouted as he pointed to the buildings across the street. Aaron, go behind that concrete barrier on the right side of the police station and shoot. Baker, you go to that concrete barrier on the left side of the police station and shoot. Me and Ginger will stay here and shoot from both sides of the Humvee. Okay, that seems like some pretty cool planning. Aaron and Baker both ran to their designated positions and began to fire back at the insurgents. Paul and Gentry began firing back also from the sides of the Humvee. Can I just point out that they're all Aaron's got hold of a gun he's going to be firing. We've had no idea what his training involved. He threw up when there was that body, and he was nearly sick when the plane landed. And he wanted to get involved in the action, but was also scared, and now he's fucking getting gun and shooting at people. So this is a big deal, isn't it? As far as in the confines of the actual story, is putting aside the lacking in quality of it, as far as this story goes, this is a big deal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's hard to tell if he's excited for the fighting or if he's traumatized by it. I know I keep getting stuck on that because Lauren misuses the word anxious a lot. So I never know if he actually means that he's anxious, he's filled with anxiety because he knows that he's expected to fight, or at some point he will be expected to fight, or if he's anxious like he was anxious to meet Kayla. He's excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. Anxious because he thought he was going to get prosecuted, or anxious because they think they're going to get turned to goo. The insurgents must... Oh, hang on a minute. Aaron and Baker both ran to the designated position and both began firing back, also from the sides of the Humvee. The insurgent must have been overwhelmed by the firepower the 4 men held because the shooting ceased after only 5 minutes. After only 5 minutes. So
That's a long time.
They were firing at the police station for 5 minutes. And where did they see them? Where were these people? How many were there? Like, what weapons did they have? And why were they shooting at the...
What were they shooting at?
Yeah, what were they...
Why would they just shoot at a Humvee?
So one would certainly assume that they've spotted these American soldiers like Ravenham. But obviously we've not been told that. Right, I can't... who's volunteering this bit?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Once Paul felt all was safe enough, they went back into the police station and were updated that the kidnapped taxi driver had been killed and they needed to find the man's body. After a few minutes deliberation, the 4 men headed back out to the Humvee and climbed in. They drove around the block to make sure the insurgents were gone, that they cordoned off the area, and began to search for the taxi driver's body. Aaron and Paul walked toward the 2 buildings to begin searching, while Baker and Gentry began walking in the opposite direction to start searching.
Do they think that cordoning off certain areas in a war zone will prevent the enemy from crossing the line?
Yeah, and what a taxi driver is doing driving around war zones.
And why are they trying to get his body?
Yeah, wouldn't that be a job for the police?
Why
are they retrieving his body?
Who knows whether they got martial law at this point or whatnot, but you're not going to risk people's lives to get, a civilian's body, even though it's horrible, but
that's the problem
doesn't make sense
with this story, isn't it? Because it doesn't make sense, and you're constantly questioning, hang on a minute, why is he doing this, why is he doing that? Even if there were any kind of plot thread or kind of excitement around what was going on, it's lost because you're just confused as fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, what is going on? What are they talking about? Why is he talking to himself? Like, what is going on? Nothing makes any sense. Aaron and Paul walked towards the 2 buildings to begin searching. Yeah,
it's good to know that Baker and Gentry made it through so far.
Yeah. Keep your eyes sharp, Paul said to Aaron. You never know if or where an insurgent could be hiding. Yeah.
So let's just cordon things off.
Yeah.
Their bullets won't penetrate.
Oh my God, that's a mighty fucking paragraph.
Oh, this is.
It's your turn, Shin.
No, it's not. It's Tiffany's, I think. Tiffany, will you please take this for me if it's my turn? I couldn't do this.
Sure.
I'll fuck it up.
Aaron could feel his adrenaline picking up as he inched toward the back of the building where the insurgents had been shooting from.
Sorry.
He inched his head around the corner to take a cautious look. Paul's notion that the insurgents had left was right on the money, Aaron found as he looked down at the body laying motionless on the ground behind the building. Aaron and Paul walked up to the man with caution, checking for any bombs that the insurgents may have left behind as a booby trap.
Booby.
You said booby.
To their relief, there was none. They looked down at the lifeless body of the taxi driver. Not an old man, Aaron said to Paul. Late 20s or early 30s, maybe. Then Aaron looked down at the hands tied behind the man's back and his ankles tied crisscrossed. He moved his eyes back to the man's face that lay with one cheek flat against the dirt and saw the bullet hole between the man's eyes just above his brows. The man had been killed execution style. A tear appeared from Aaron's eye, and his face grew pale. He felt a great pain for the man that had been carelessly murdered.
Okay. What's that weird guy doing next to that body? Get him out of there.
Exactly.
It doesn't, of course, anybody dying under those circumstances, as humans, we would hope that we would feel some kind of compassion. This is a guy going into an alleged war zone, and you know, a member of the civilian population has died. He's going to see, and he's just seen somebody explode. You know.
And I think this is his attempt to try to touch our heart and feel the pain and how much emotion is involved with Aaron's reaction. A tear appeared from Aaron's eye, and his face grew pale. That's kind of a weird sentence right there. Is he sick or is he sad? I can't tell which one. He felt great pain for the man that had been carelessly murdered. Carelessly. Okay, usually it's an intentional act, the murder, but that's okay.
Yeah, you're right. Carelessly is like reckless, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry about that. A little bit like
I still don't know why the United States Army or Marines or whatever they are in are wasting their resources. I don't want to say wasting, but using their resources to find civilians' bodies. And from what I understand, a lot more civilians died, in this conflict.
Yeah.
They
it sounds like we're being a bit blasé about the value of human life here, but of course, you have to look at it in the context of war. And you're right, it doesn't make much sense. But this has been a prominent part, if not the most prominent part of the whole story so far. Aaron has seen this guy, this suicide bomber, blow up, didn't take it very well, become close with this guy. Then they're out on duty. They get shot at. Have I missed something as well? Did they kill the people that were shooting at the police station? They just stopped firing.
Assumed. I think he said they assumed that they had overpowered him.
Yeah.
I think that was the word he used.
Don't be a spoiler. I mean, that guy's still out there. We don't know if it's people or one gunman. We don't know. They were just firing at a building.
Yeah.
They just eventually stopped after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, let's go now.
They just opened fire on a daycare center.
Yeah, it didn't. I'm glad a lot of important detail was missed out of that. Paul put his hand up against Aaron's shoulders. Let's call in that we found the man's body so they can give him a proper burial as soon as possible. Why?
Yeah.
They can't do that over every civilian that's caught in the crossfire. I mean, anyway, Aaron wiped the tear from his eye and then turned to Paul to radio Baker and Gentry that they had just found the body and to meet them back at the police station. After letting the police know they located the body, Aaron, Paul, Baker and Gentry piled back into the Humvee and headed back to the base. Paul and Aaron held quiet up front as Baker and Gentry drew a short cropped up conversation between the two of them on the ride back.
Yeah.
Okay. Both Paul and Aaron knew that they should probably spend a couple of hours talking to each other about their feeling.
We have pillow talk tonight.
And what they had seen and been through all day, but neither could find the words to begin talking about it, so they both just lay silently staring into the dark. It was about 1 a.m. when Aaron finally drifted off to sleep. He was having trouble all night as he tossed and turned. Sure he did. And finally woke up around 4 a.m. in a cold sweat from the nightmare he'd been having. He lay there deep in thought and motionless as another tear rolled down his cheek. It took another hour before he fell back asleep. Right, okay, so he's having nightmares now, so he's not dealing with this.
He's a crybaby. So he likes to cry.
It's 8 a.m. when he finally woke up. He was late for work, but Paul left a note on the bed explaining to him that he knew he had a hard time sleeping, that he didn't want to wake him up for work because he...
What? Like a couple.
So he's just going to leave him there so he doesn't...
That's like a couple. I'm going to leave you a little note, honey.
What the fuck is going on between these two? It's not them that have the sex scene, is it?
This is starting to be a better one.
You tossed and turned all night last night. Get showered and dressed and come into work when you wake up with no red.
Why would the military allow somebody to just say, I'm going to sleep in? I had a really hard day.
Because he needed his rest. He tossed and turned. He had a bad dream. Of course they're going to let him sleep in. Tiffany, what do you think? They're monsters?
Well, even an employer, if you were to call into work and say, I had a really rough day yesterday. I need to sleep in today.
A guy blew up in front of me. Do you mind?
But we know Lorne takes emotional days off. His ideas of what's acceptable for calling out of work is different than most people. What makes it really funny is that this is the Army. I don't think that'll fly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even just if you imagine yourself as an employer and some pussy calls you up and said that they had a hard day, so they need to be late. I mean, why the fuck are they going to care?
But and not
Especially
only
even
that,
more the military.
Right.
exactly. I mean, your superior is gonna see you in your bunk and, oh, look at that poor guy. Let me
Yeah,
write him a note.
he's
Here
sleeping
you
so
go.
soundly.
I'm gonna put the note right next to it so he can see it when he wakes up. Should I spray with cologne? What should I
You look
do?
so
Yes.
sweet. I didn't want to wake you.
Yeah,
That's weird.
you
It is
stay in
really
bed,
weird.
dear. Reveille
You
doesn't
tucked
apply
him
to you.
in, pulled the blanket up over his shoulders.
Your sleepies. Go ahead.
Oh, God.
What are we up to?
Oh, we've got somebody in the chat who was there. Wayne Tech. Cool. Wayne Tech, how real is this compared to your experiences there? We'd love to
I'd
know.
love to know this. I've got a pretty good idea what kind of answer we're going to get.
And anyone else who's been there too, obviously.
And yeah, tell me if you're enraged by Lorne's writing as well, because I've never.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
I've never
I'd like to know how you feel about it.
served in the forces, and it's starting to wind me up. Aaron pushed the thoughts of the previous day events out of his head the best he could and climbed off his bunk. He gathered up his things and moved to the shower to wash the night of sleep away and and thoughtlessly slid into his uniform. So he just kind of like thoughtlessly slid. I don't even want to think about it. He tossed his cap on his head. He gets dressed in a very strange way, doesn't he? It's almost like he's using the force. He tossed the cap on his head and walked out of the door and walked to the mess hall to get some assistance from a cup of coffee and a biscuit for some energy. He's fucking nutrition shit.
I hate his folksy vocabulary and vernaculars and all this other shit that he throws in there. Like he's trying to be Mr. Casual when he's writing. He's trying to establish some kind of, I don't know, some kind of a MO or some kind of a mark about him. But it's just like he just throws in these things like to get some assistance.
Yeah.
The fuck is that?
I think he's trying to use some like elegant
Colloquialisms or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like elegant phrases in his writing. What did he say before? He washed the night of sleep away.
Yeah, well, it's just showered it away, right? Yeah.
I feel like he's heard those phrases before on TV or maybe other books he read or something, and he was really impressed by them. So he used them in his own writing.
Yeah. And the time he chooses to talk in Iraq, in between the actions and between what was going on, so boring.
Yeah. Well, I think that Tiffany is the most eloquent speaker out of all of us. So
I agree.
Like to,
totally.
Hear her to read this bit, please.
The next week and a half was all repetition. Go to work, then bed. All the while, Aaron still had thoughts of the taxi driver. The images of his lifeless body lying there in front of him haunted Aaron every night in his dreams. He had called home and talked to his mom and let her know some of the events that had taken place and to reassure her that he was all right. Even though he tried to disguise the tone in his voice so that his mom couldn't see how much he was bothered by the things he had seen, he still got the feeling that she could tell he had changed from the last time that he talked to her. Aaron hung up the phone feeling better after talking to his mother. Somehow, hearing her voice had restored a comforting feeling that was lost at the sight of the dead taxi driver.
Why is the dead taxi driver more...
He must have known the guy.
Well, why is that more traumatizing than seeing a guy explode?
Well, because the suicide bomber was the bad guy.
Right.
Right.
This is just an innocent party. Right.
Yeah.
And plus he didn't get to see the suicide bomber's dead body. He was all over the place.
Except for his scalp.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah, this guy got a bullet hole between the eyes. Okay. Innocent, I guess. And the mother. It's weird. He's saying that he's proclaiming that he's changed without saying he's changed. You know, he's saying that his mother has recognized that he's changed, but she hasn't said anything. And then he talks about how his comfort has been restored, which tells us I really don't see any change in this guy. Is anybody else? Is he more hardened? Is he turning on the dark side? Is he, depressed even? I have no fucking clue. It's the same kid who's staring at the clock in chapter 1.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's just talking about one of the experiences, but for some reason, this taxi driver seeing that dead body in front of him, even though he didn't see the guy get shot, he found his body, and that was traumatizing for him. He had a tear in his eye, even though he had just gone through an adrenaline rush, not knowing where these shooters were. He's walking around the back of the building blind. They could be standing right there to get him. And when he sees the guy, he starts to cry. It seems like it might be almost impossible for that to happen physically.
So I think he's trying to use that as an opportunity to virtue signal about how it really hit home. This poor innocent man, he was carelessly
without
killed.
demonstrating
I think
it.
What he meant was needlessly killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just wants to show he's full of empathy and sympathy for the innocent Iraqis involved in this.
A book on that's supposed to honor the military and their service is really, this is insulting, but there's a couple of people in the chat who have been there, who have offered their opinions about this. Andrew, I don't know if you've seen. Wayne Tech says that this is fantasy land. The only time you get to sleep is in your SIQ. Not sure what that is. AKA injured or okay. This is when Paul let Aaron sleep in. When you were either injured or had a medical procedure done. That's the only time they let you sleep in. And then we've got another comment. Who was it? It was closer to the bottom.
Mr. C said, having served in Iraq, it's a total BS that four lower enlisted soldiers are going around in a Humvee solo, going to an Iraqi police station and parking outside the front door. So, of course, it makes sense that this is all total bullshit.
Yeah, it's reckless, isn't it? Because they was shot at a minute ago. We don't know what's happened to these people. That's the most important thing. Like, I know we're moving on now, but earlier what happened to those people that were shooting at the police station for 5 minutes? And where's the support that they got? They just went out on their own into that area when there's It's just it's listen. Like I said earlier, we're picking apart, we're really critiquing this very hard, but like we've said, it's like I think we've got the justification to do it, and really there's a lot to critique. You can look at many films and they've all got glaring plot holes when you really dig into it, but it's a chasm. It's one enormous chasm. It's not plot holes. Yeah.
It's also like it's like what you would see. It's like what you would cut out in a tell-all big book. You say, you can leave this shit out. That's distracting to the story. Except for he kept all that shit in and threw all the good stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would give it credit if there was room to. If I didn't think it all absolutely sucked, then I would reluctantly maybe, but I would give him credit for it. But it's all just really bad.
Come on, Shane, you can manage a couple of lines, can't you?
This one, okay. I actually practiced in my head for a second. 3 weeks had gone by since the shootout with the insurgents at the police station. Paul walked over to Aaron with a look on his face that told Aaron something was up. Where do we have to go? Aaron asked Paul before Paul even got a word out. We have to go to the Iraqi police station again, Paul replied. What's going on this time? He asked. Nothing. We're going to be training them. Paul looked at Aaron and noted a sigh of relief and also a hint of regret on his face. Jesus, he's got so many contradictory expressions. What was the other one? Anxious? No. enthusiastic and something. I can't remember what it was.
Stunned
and enthusiastic. Yeah. Here he is. He's relieved and regretful.
And we're also hearing that from Paul's perspective for some reason.
That's happened a couple times.
Yeah.
We'll suddenly get. Remember, Paul was relieved that the translator was an American, so it would be easy to communicate with them. Just kind of out of the blue, you get Paul's thoughts and perspective.
Yeah, like he becomes the narrator of the story at some point. Oh, look, Baker and Gentry are back, and they got a guy named Bowler. Okay, they left and gathered up Baker, Gentry, and Jerry Bowler. I guess Baker and Gentry don't get first names. Okay, a worker. I haven't heard their first names. Have you guys? I don't know.
I can't remember.
Or is Jerry Bowler?
And we don't even know what gender they are, do we?
Maybe Jerry isn't even in the military. He's just kind of a guy that hangs around. I don't know. A buddy. A worker. Oh, here he is. He's a worker.
Can I just point out, Baker and Gentry could be dogs?
Could be. Canines.
Well, they were all shooting. So
oh, right,
yeah.
Okay.
It's assumed they were not dogs.
Now that would be a cool story, dog shooting.
That's what this story needs, a bit of, like, if the dog started, like, going out into the field and shooting at people, it could at least make it entertaining.
I can't do the next one. I just tried it in my head. I can't do
it. What? You've
they
not
left.
even finished that sentence, paragraph.
No, to the side of. Well, that's okay. They left and gathered up Baker, Gentry, and Jerry Bowler. Let's just throw it out there. And featuring Jerry Bowler, a worker from the refueling unit, because they needed an extra man and left in the Humvee for the Iraqi police station. Wow. That's just wow. As they approached the police station, Aaron looked at the building to his left where he had found the taxi driver. Will I ever get that image out of my mind? He asked himself. He was able to move the thought from his head for most of the day as they were training the Iraqi police. After 10 hours of training, Aaron was ready to go back to the base and lay his head on his pillow for a long night of rest. Another useless fucking day.
It's kind of Lon's life, really, isn't it? Another useless day where nothing was established.
Nothing.
So, is there anything we need to take from this as far as the plot goes? After 10 hours of training, that's a long day, and he's not even touched upon it. I mean, not that it matters to anything, but...
He's just showing the reader that the death of that taxi driver has really impacted him.
Yeah.
And is creating issues with his mental health. That's the only thing I got out of that.
You're right. That's the only thing that we've established, and I assume that's quite an important plot for what happens to this Aaron fella later on. On the way back to the base, the guys were laughing and discussing the day's events of training the Iraqi policemen. The ride was quiet and smooth, and Aaron slouched easily back against his seat while Paul drove along. He closed his eyes and took in the conversation and put his remarks in when he needed to. What the fuck are you... It's just such a bizarre way of explaining things. It is fucking...
I picture him putting his head on Paul's shoulder as he's driving.
I mean, I can't picture it because I don't know what they look like. He could feel himself begin to fall asleep, so he quickly sat up and rubbed his eyes back into focus and looked at the road ahead. Just as his eyes got focused, an explosion through the Humvee sideways, and Paul slammed on the brakes. He was now placed in... What? Hang on a minute, I'm struggling here. Through the Humvee sideways, but it's still stood. It's still on its tires. It's still in its normal position. So how did it throw it sideways?
It's not going straight anymore. So it's swerved, the back end swerved over to the side.
Fishtailed and
yeah,
right,
exactly.
Fishtailed. That's a good.
And then he overcorrected.
Yeah,
fucking Paul's a shitty driver.
Yeah, Paul slammed on the brakes. He was now placed in the opposite lane. Right, okay. Is everyone all right? Paul asked. He looked at Aaron to his right, saw that he was fine, then turned around. So he's checking his mate or lover, whatever you want to call him, first. And then Baker, Gentry, and Bowler were all right. Jerry, why is he now referring to him as Jerry? Jerry had his hand over his ears and was slightly bent over in this. What are they doing in that car?
Jerry's a coward.
Jerry's bent over the seat. Baker and Gentry are having a go at him. Jerry, are you all right? Paul asks. Jerry? He repeated. Jerry did. Oh no, this
Jerry
isn't good.
it.
Jerry didn't reply. Aaron turned around and grabbed Jerry's hand to pull them away. This is that Star Trek character you were talking about, Shin. To pull them away from his ears. As he lifted his left hand from Jerry's ear, he saw a small stream of blood roll down Jerry's earlobe from inside the ear. This isn't good. We need to get him to the hospital now, Aaron said to Paul. Paul took his foot off the brake and stepped down heavily on the accelerator. I think we should all get checked out while we're there, he stated. Well, why would you point that out at that point? Aaron looked at the confused look on Jerry's face. He could tell that Jerry couldn't hear anything but admired the way he remained calm. He's unconscious. That's why he remained.
Yeah, he's in shock. Well, he was in shock, I think.
He admired the way he lay paralyzed in that vehicle. Even the dog's outraged. At the hospital, everyone checked out all right except Jerry. The doctor informed Paul, Aaron, Baker and Gentry that Jerry's eardrum had blown out from the explosion and he would have to remain at the hospital. Well, at least he's going to survive, poor Jerry. They all went to their bunks and prayed that night for Jerry to recover, and thank God that nobody got killed in the explosion. Your turn, Amanda James.
Okay. The next few months went by quickly, and Aaron thought less and less about the incident with the taxi driver. Although he still remained in his mind, he was able to deal with it easier than he had when it first happened. He had a hard time when he had to say goodbye to Jerry. Although he still had life, thank God, he would never be able to hear again because of the explosion that took his eardrums.
I thought it was just one.
I missed that part. Did Jerry make it?
Yeah.
He's just deaf now.
Deaf.
Yeah. I'll sort. Aaron spent most of his time with Paul, even though they weren't working and training the Iraqi police. They grew very close. They grew very close, and I was happy he had someone who could confide in when they were having a hard time. Couldn't imagine how much harder his time in Iraq would have been if he didn't have Paul there with him. So, do you know what's kind of frustrating about this? These guys have grown close, but there's been no time that they've spent together. There's been no dialogue between them. Nothing is. They've been involved in a couple of incidents, and he pointed him to his top bunk. There's no.
No. I mean, Paul did let him know about the missions well beforehand for the rest of the guys.
There's no chemistry between them, is there? There's nothing.
Well, I didn't say that, but I'm just telling you there's some dialogue. And there's been plenty of dialogue, at night discussing, whatever's bothering them as they looked into the darkness, whatever he said. But that's about it.
Well, Paul and Aaron seem to always be together, but we don't get to hear any, like Shin just said, that we hear that they talk for long hours at night, but we don't actually get to hear any of the dialogue or see how, what the dynamic is like between the two of them or anything about their relationship except that they're close.
Well, we don't know anything about Paul, actually. We don't even know what he looks like. We know what the suicide bomber looks like down to a T. We don't know what Paul looks like at all.
Yep.
I mean, we could start with that, before we get to their relationship, but this is lazy.
Aaron would call his mother about once every 2 weeks, along with write her letters to let her know he was all right and to update her on everything that was going on. He let her know that even though he was proud of the things they were doing to help the Iraqi people, he had a hard time dealing with some of the things he'd seen happen and been through. Could you not have, wouldn't it have been better to quote the letter? Do you know what I mean? You could write out the letter in the book.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Things aren't.
It would have made the book so much better.
Oh, well, there is a quote here. I have to correct myself. Things aren't at all what I pictured in my head when I jammed up, Mom. What is it about it, though? Like, what were his expectations, and what is it that he didn't think? He didn't think there was going to be conflict and death. But, what is it? He didn't think that he was going to... Most of the time, his thoughts would drift back to the suicide bomber and the taxi driver. So we've established here that it was... So the suicide bomber is bothering him. It's not just the taxi driver. There have been much more since then, but for some uncertain reason, he would still think back to those two. Well, that doesn't make any sense. There have been much more since then, but for some uncertain reason, he would still think back. So what else has happened? You're alluding to the point that he's been through a lot, but what's worse than them two deaths? And did you get what I mean? It's all very vague and confusing.
Laziness. That's him justifying why he didn't go through the incidents, because these two are more prominent to him. So I don't have to go through the other ones with you.
But for him to say here, for some uncertain reason, the uncertainty that he's talking about here is fundamental to the story it's fundamental to this story. You can't just say uncertain.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because they were the first things of this nature he'd ever witnessed in his innocent life. Okay. His mum let him know that she could tell him he had changed just by talking to him on the phone. Has he said that?
No, because his mother's telling him now that she could tell.
Ah, right.
But before he was
suspected she knew.
could tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but has he changed? I mean, we don't know, other than the author telling us he's changed.
Well.
How can you tell just by talking to me on the phone? I'm your mother. It's my job to know these things.
Holy shit.
As much as he tried to hide his feelings, she still knew. He was always but he sent her. He told her what had been going on. You know what I mean? He told her in letters, it's not all it's cracked up to be. I'm struggling. He was always amazed at the insight his mother had into his life. Yeah, reading letters and reciting it back to him. Paul would always tell Aaron, if it weren't for mothers, this world would be... What? What the fuck? What kind of a quote is that? If it weren't for mothers, this world...
He's sucking up to his own mother.
It's
I would
so
just assume
weird.
if it weren't for mothers, we wouldn't be here. Why don't we just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think women that give birth are vitally important to the continuity of our species. I mean...
Well, but this whole idea that he's done this, and it's such a short amount that he's written so far. He's idolized, he's put on a pedestal his mother so many times in this thing. It makes me wonder whether he was doing it for her in real time so she can read it and, I don't know, get his approval or whatever, or he's trying to butter her up for something, or to get that $5,000. Could use that money, but look, this book I wrote for that money has all kinds of proclamations of my love for you. Check it out.
Well, it could also be because when he wrote this, when he was in prison, I think his mother was probably the only person he had that supported him. She's the only person who would write him letters and send him money and accept his phone calls. So I'm sure she was forefront in his mind. It's not like he had other people.
It's also interesting to note that Aaron doesn't have a girlfriend or the semblance of one or a history of one or anything. I think that's kind of significant. It's very rare, I guess, for people to not have gone through, high school or whatever, who was somewhat popular. I guess that's how how Lauren's trying to describe Aaron as, wouldn't have had some relationship that they would have,
I don't think he's putting Aaron out there as being popular in high school. He didn't say anything about that.
Well, the slap on the back from Derek told me everything.
Well, that was from one person. And remember, he didn't sit with anybody at lunch.
That's because he chose not to.
Right.
That's the feeling I got, that he could have sat with his friend, but he chose not to because he's too busy thinking about his future, unlike all the deadbeat kids back home.
Yeah, they stuck around and got dead end jobs. They weren't like him. They wanted to be like him. I mean, he doesn't come out and say those things, but the way he's describing it, he thinks that this is something this person is better than other people.
Well, he's a hero in his own mind. So he's looking at them and saying, look at you losers. You're staying here having dead-end jobs, and I'm actually going to do something that's important to other people too. Right.
And again, the bottom line is that it's Aaron's choice not to have these friends in his life. I mean, that's the way it feels to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's. I think we can all agree it's a big clusterfuck, isn't it? It's a confusing mess of just random happenings and inconsistent plot developments and bizarre character motivations, and it's just shallow. It's just.
There's none of those things in the book. What you just said. There's none of those.
Luckily. There is the occasional hilarity which makes it worthwhile. There's just some of the, it's a good. What was the last rambling nonsense he said? Oh, it's a good job there's mothers, otherwise nobody would give birth or some shit. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? It's just, but isn't it strangely entertaining to go through something like this? I think there is an element that makes me, because as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, I actually could probably write a book. Like, just realising just how shit it, not that Lorne sold anything, but I actually realise myself what's required. But that's just basic common sense. It's not that I don't think I'd be particularly good at it. I'm not very good languageist, if that's a word, and I've just summed up why I'm not a good languageist, because I've just made up a word that doesn't exist to try and explain that I'm not a good at that. So I love the irony there, but you get what I'm saying. I'm good communicator verbally, but writing I'm not very good at. But like, to write a book, a good novel, as we've already said, is so difficult. It's like when you read a book, I've read loads, most of them are Star Wars ones, embarrassingly, but you have to sift through a lot of shit to read good books, because you got to tick so many boxes. It's a little bit like a good movie, really. You watch a good... how many movies are coming out now that are just shit, repeated, and it's the same with books, it takes a very skilled, talented person, and you've got to put so much effort into it, haven't you? It's been interesting because I've never critiqued a book like this, and we've probably picked the worst book in the world to critique.
Yeah, I compartmentalize parts of this book, the part in Iraq is just kind of like a throwaway for me. It's just, for something that should be suspenseful and scary and whatever, it's just the worst part of the book. The best part of the book is when he's home, before and after Iraq.
Spoilers, dude.
No, I just can't wait to get through this Iraq thing.
Well, I think an interesting part of this, too, is his relationship with Paul and how they're best friends and they tell each other everything and they are going through this together. Lorne is desperate for that kind of a friendship. He declares Emma as his best friend, or, Dan and Emma are our best friends. That he wants to have that type of thing where you have somebody that you can talk to, that you can tell anything to. And so he's establishing that here with his character having his relationship with Paul.
Yeah, that's a
Did you guys notice that after the explosion that left Jerry Bowler deaf, Paul
who is that guy?
Paul asked all the guys if they were okay, but he asked Aaron first.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch that part?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I didn't. Oh, that's funny.
I think I mentioned it when I was talking about it.
Sorry.
But no, it's fine because it's worth it. It's what it highlights the point of what Tiffany just said about Lorne's, because that's the most prominent part of the book so far is Lorne's relationship with Aaron, with Paul, even more than his mother, really. I mean, it makes sense because the main, the main focus of the book has been in Iraq. We've spent more time there, so obviously we're going to get more of the relationship between him and Paul. But it is interesting what you said, Tiffany, about him. It's kind of a longing. So he has this longing for this career that means something, and a longing for this best friend who to support him and help him. And he's got the caring mother in the background who will always know his deepest thoughts, always stick up for him, buy him cars.
And Paul's laugh. Sorry. But the thing is, in addition to what Tiffany said, Paul is the pursuer of Aaron too. It's not the other way around. Paul, Aaron didn't get to choose where his bunk was. It was happenstance, maybe. But Paul was the one who was telling him secrets, and Paul was the one. Aaron was nothing. Aaron was Paul's Kayla. So he's always being pursued.
Yeah,
his best friend. So he doesn't want just best friends. He wants people who initiate that.
You'd feel sorry for him if it wasn't Lorne. If this was just some regular character who craved for that closeness, you'd be like, "Oh, isn't that a shame?" But
I actually hate the author at this point. I don't. If it wasn't
really, we never guessed.
It's putting me in a shitty mood. It really has.
It is a strange thing. It's a little bit like going through the chat log. You go through a range of emotions, but not for the reasons that you're being taken on a ride by the book, which is what is supposed to happen when you read something. It's frustration, humour. Like you're laughing, you're pissed off, you're confused. You're like, what the fuck is he saying? What's going on? It's just a bizarre thing. It really is. It's like, and why did he? I wonder why he came up with the plot of. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go into that another time. We'll be here all night. But yeah, I think. Is there anything else you guys took from these couple of chapters? We've done 2 chapters. Isn't that good? Oh, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, that was that stupid mother comment was the last bit of chapter 3.
Awesome. I'm proud that we did that.
I think it's a little bit bizarre that he only has one friend and they're incredibly close.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't. Do you know what I think that is? I don't think he's that. He can think that much more about him. Many other character, any more character dynamics, basically.
Mm-hmm.
He just focuses on the one, doesn't he? Because it's been difficult enough for him to keep up with that.
I don't know. Gentry was a cool character. I wish we knew more about him.
I'm still not convinced that Gentry isn't a canine. He might have had a weapon attached to his back for all we know. So yeah, we've done. It's strangely hard work that we've done 2.5 hours of graph there, haven't we? We really have. Yeah.
You should, somebody made a point. He has 2 friends, Paul and Derek, right? So you would think maybe he'd write a letter home to him, too.
Yeah, because
home is just basically his mother. That's it.
Yeah, there was no point in that Derek ever showing up, was there?
There was none, other than to pat him on the back and let people think that he's popular.
Well, you'll see him pop up again.
Oh,
he does? Oh, okay. I forgot.
Yeah.
Wow. Something to look forward to there, guys. The return of Derek, ex-Derek, in Taken Abroad, coming maybe next week, maybe the week after. Who knows?
I'll sit down and break ham.
But we will wrap it up because it's getting late. We've done 2.5 hours. We've done I think we all deserve spirited. Give us a round of applause to yourselves in your mind, like Aaron talks to himself. for getting through 2 chapters. Andrew thought to himself, "Oh, we've done well to get through 2 chapters." So we'll probably continue if we're all available next weekend. We'll just go through 1 chapter because it's been quite tiring, I think. But I have to thank my good friends Tiffany, Amanda, James, and Shin for joining me today. Thank you for bearing the burden with me, guys. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Love the pace.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks everybody in the chat for joining us. I think I did like a little poll just to find out what you wanted to, whether you wanted us to go back to the chat log or continue with this, and unanimously people wanted us to do the next chapter, and we did 2 for you. So hopefully you've enjoyed it, because there's no point doing them if you don't. We can never get enough long, can we? For some reason.
One chapter closer to the Lorne porn. Think of that, guys.
I didn't think we'd be able to get to the end without you mentioning that again. I dread to think what's going to happen when it actually arrives. But you know what?
Part of this piece of dog shit.
I'm quite a disciplined character, me, so I'm quite satisfied to let it, to leave it until I'm not going to pre-read it. Is what I'm saying. I'll wait. Be like a reveal when we go through it in the chapter.
It's not exactly going to.
I think I'm going to have to read it as well, if I'm being honest. But anyway, we'll decide that when the time comes.
No, your reaction's my only entertainment. Right. Please don't.
Right, okay, guys. So thanks in the chat again. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're all doing well. And please put any comments that you think, things that we've missed, anything that you think's funny, leave them in the comments, please. It's always good to hear from you. It's like I always check the comments as often as I can, so I would appreciate it. And take it easy. We'll speak to you soon.